What you are about to hear is the original unreleased pilot of Tiger Claw Radio. This was recorded in a Best Buy parking lot in my wife's car on an MP3 player. What I didn't realize at the time was that the car engine was being picked up by the MP3 player, thus making the recording virtually unlistenable. This is all that was salvaged. At the time, all I really had to talk about was things that were coming in the future in terms of videos. Anyway, for your listening pleasure, and for the sake of archival purposes, here is the original pilot to Tiger Claw Radio. Welcome everybody, this is Critical Failure. Thanks for joining us with Tiger Claw Radio. That's right, this is the Tiger Claw TV podcast. This is the first podcast, and today happens to be January 20th, 2009. That's correct. This is Inauguration Day. We just received our new president, and we also are receiving our new Tiger Claw Radio podcast. I have a very long production list of all the projects that I've been working on, and I'm not expecting this podcast to be well listened to, you know. So if you have downloaded this and you're listening to it, I'd love to be perfectly open with you and just go down my production list and tell you everything I'm thinking about and everything that's going on. And I have two big reasons for that. One, because I want you to know what's coming. I want you to be excited about what's coming, okay? Because I do have some good stuff in store. And two, because I've noticed that I'm finishing the projects that I'm starting, which is one of the reasons I'm so excited about this project, Tiger Claw TV in general, is that I'm actually starting projects and finishing them. You know, I've noticed, like, take the Happy Video Game Nerd, for example, Derek Alexander. Now, this guy's my hero. I think of all the internet video game review shows, specifically the ones dedicated to classic gaming, this guy has got, in my opinion, the best show. Now, if you disagree with me, that's awesome. I'd love for you to write in to ajc1490@gmail.com and let me know about it. But this guy, early on in his shows, he said he was going to do an Earthbound video. And then later on, much later on, he never did it. And then he said he regretted saying he was going to do it because he felt obligated to go back and do it when he wanted to do other things. Okay, and now he said he wrote a script for it. It's not out yet. He's working hard at it, and he's going to put it out. Okay, so the thing about that is, first of all, that's fine. I totally understand him taking that approach. But the problem with that is, then you have your show, and you cannot say anything about what's coming. I don't want to be one of those guys who's like, okay, here's the show. Join us next time. That's all I got to tell you. No, okay? If I start making D&D games, I'm first going to do a review for a game called Wizardry for the NES. And the reason why was because there's a story about two programmers, and one dared the other. He said, there's a guy named Andrew something, that I could put Dungeons and Dragons into a video game better than anyone else. And he did. And it was called Wizardry. So if you played Wizardry, it's a direct port of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. It's a first-person dungeon crawler, very primitive, but it is the best port of Dungeons and Dragons, I think, all the way up until maybe Eye of the Beholder for the SNES. I mean, it's a good game, and it has some historical value too. I believe it was the first. I've heard that it was the first game to use decision-based combat. Now, I've heard that. I don't know if that's true, because I know Ultima, the first Ultima, Chapter 1, had decision-based combat, and that might have come out first. But if it wasn't, it was definitely one of the first. So I would use that video and put that out first to kind of transition to making some Dungeons and Dragons videos. That way I could kind of package D&D for a video gaming audience, but that's the thing. I want to stick to my audience and make the videos they want to watch. I said I was going to do a variety channel. As a matter of fact, the original channel said variety. That's been dropped. I might do D&D, but if I do D&D, then it's D&D and classic games. It's still a gaming reviews channel, so it's reviews. We'll stick to reviews. Just a little tidbit, if you're checking out the podcast, I'll mention some trivia. I was originally going to do Kung Fu movie reviews because I like Kung Fu movies and they're absolutely hilarious at times, especially if you scrape the bottom of the barrel Kung Fu movies. Technical issues have kept that from happening. So all that's going to be left over from that idea is the theme song from the Sonny Chiba classic, the Street Fighter, is the theme song I will continue to use for my intro. And those scenes with the car, where the slideshow, the quick slideshow of the car falling off the bridge, that's from Sonny Chiba's The Street Fighter. That was going to be my first Kung Fu movie review, which may never happen, which I'm fine with. If you haven't seen it, go to archive.org and watch it. It's a public domain movie. It's there for free. You can watch it. If you don't want to go to archive.org, just look it up on YouTube. It's there in parts too. Today happens to be January 23rd, 2009, when I'm recording this. I'm not expecting this to be very widely listened to, so if you're listening, hey, thanks for joining us. I'm going to go over some things here. First off, why do a podcast? Well, the reason is, I guess, because I've been into listening to podcasts. I'm just the kind of person who's, if it's something I'm into, then I want a piece of it. Also, it's a little bit, I'm not going to say it's easier than doing the show, but this is a good way for me to continue working and putting out material while I'm busy with school. Right now I got a move going on, and that's really difficult. But podcasts are a good medium. This is a good way to open up the forum and really tell everybody what's up and what's going on with freeware and with classic games and with Tiger Claw TV without clogging my YouTube with pointless small videos. That said, I want to thank RetroWare TV for featuring the awesome Possum Kicks Dr. Machino's butt video on the front page. That was awesome. Okay, when that happened, my viewership quadrupled overnight. Alright, I'm still a pretty small show as it goes. I have 41 subscribers, and I mean, look at Chris Bores, the irate gamer. This guy's got like what, 6,000 or something. He puts out a video, and by the time you see it, after it's only been up an hour, it already has hundreds and hundreds of views. Okay, I never dream of being that popular. As far as I'm concerned, I'm fine being the guy that you check out while you're waiting for the next video to come out. I've been putting out a pretty solid one video a week, which is a lot for me considering I have a move and school going on right now. But yeah, so moving on. So what's happening with Tiger Claw TV? First off, I'm kind of pushing this award show thing. For those of you who don't know, I'm putting on a Winter 08-09 Video Game Reviewer Awards. This is an award for the best independent video game review video. All those videos you like, Angry Video Game Nerd, The Happy Video Game Nerd, Still Gaming, Little Miss Gamer, who else? The Irate Gamer, Ultra Neko, all those, anybody who's on the internet making videos about games. This is going to be an award for the best video to come out this winter. So if you have a favorite that's come out this winter and you want to nominate this video for the Winter Review Awards, go to the YouTube, www.youtube.com/TigerClawTV, and go to the video, the announcement video, and post your comment. Or you could send it to me, send it to my email. That's ajc1490@gmail.com, or pretty much comment on anything. Just get it to me any way you can reach me. I check the email. I check all my personal comments. I'm pretty active. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. I know this is a long way off because I'm scheduling this show to be released March 21st. I think that's the first day of spring. But hey, it's a long way off, but I want everyone to get psyched about it. I'm working on it really hard now, alongside of all the other videos I'm putting out. So this is gonna be a good show. All right. What else is going on? The new website. If you're listening to this, there is a Tiger Claw TV website. Now, I got to tell you, I fought this thing kicking and screaming. All right, I did not want a website because I wanted my YouTube page to be it. But it didn't work out that way. I mean, it does. The YouTube page is still the page, but I've noticed that it would be helpful to have like a companion site. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. When I made the pinball construction set video, I made specific tables that went along with it. Okay, like example pinball tables, and I wanted those tables to be downloadable. I was just kind of figuring out about YouTube videos at the time. I kind of thought like maybe I could put one of those gray annotation boxes that you could click on and download it, but YouTube wouldn't let me. I guess I didn't realize that that's kind of restricted to other YouTube videos. So I've had this idea floating in the back of my head to just make a site, a very small site that just has these things, these extras, little goodies from my videos you can go and download. And hey, if you can download little goodies, why not? You know, here's a podcast. You can put it on and listen to it. Right now, I just want to say that the future ones will be better. I'm kind of learning all these things as I go. Tiger Claw TV has just been an awesome ride, and I'm kind of making it up as I go along. So everybody, bear with me. A lot of the reviewers, out there, we don't get paid. We do it because we like it, and it's your feedback that keeps guys like me making videos and making podcasts and making websites and making entertainment for you. This is the second podcast. Today happens to be Tuesday, January 27th, 2009. I think that's important because I listen to a lot of old podcasts from archive.org. If you go to archive.org, you can catch podcasts like Go Nintendo podcasts and a few things like that. But they're episodes from several years ago. So I came to the conclusion that you have no idea when somebody's going to check out your podcast. You don't know how long it's going to float around the internet in which various little armpits, small web pages with collections of weird things you'll find popping up. So today is, as I said, the 27th of January in 2009. Now, first off, I want to apologize for the quality of the podcast you're hearing. I just went through a big move, and I can't find my microphone, so I'm using a headset. I think the microphone had a little bit better quality, but I'll deal with it, so bear with me. So, what has Critical Failure been up to? I've been really spread really thin over all the video projects I have going on. I mean, I got a lot of them. I got this new music video that I'm working on that I played a sample of in the last podcast. I got a Moochin video I've been collecting footage for. I got the Streets of Rage video that's coming out. And I told you that the Legend of Cage video was going to come out before the last podcast was put out, and that didn't happen because there was some gross problem with the recording of the audio. See, when I put out my videos, I do a voiceover. I do the voiceover first, and then I lay in my images over the voiceover. And I was listening to the voiceover, and there was a big problem with like the second half of it, so I got to re-record it. So basically, I got to do about half of it over again, which is a big bummer. So, what else is going on? I'm trying to get guest appearances for the podcast, and that's being more difficult than I thought it would be. I sent letters to a few of the big YouTube names. I sent a letter to Chris Bors. We'll see if he writes back. I doubt it. Chris Bors, the irate gamer. He's ultra popular. That would be awesome if he would make an appearance, but I don't really see that happening. And a couple other people. There's a fairly popular video blogger named Legend of Wayne. www.youtube.com/legendofwayne.
It's a guy who does Let's Play style videos, like narrated Let's Play style videos of PC games, current like popular PC games, and they're pretty entertaining programming. So, trying to get in contact with him, maybe he could make a quick appearance, tell us what he thinks about modern gaming. But here's a guy who's pretty much cut off all contact with his user audience. The only way you can contact him is by leaving comments on his videos, which is, I guess it seems strange to me. If you're releasing videos and you're in the public eye, however, he has his right to privacy, so that's cool. What's going on besides that? There's Mega Upload, the site that's hosting my podcast for free, has had this weird thing. This counter, the download counter, where you see how many times your thing has been downloaded, it reads 0 for my last podcast, which is fine, But I got 2 emails from different people, very positive, very supportive emails about that first podcast. So I know it got listened to, but it's still, and I checked it just before I made this podcast, it still reads 0 downloads. So I guess what I'm saying is feedback is appreciated, because I have no idea. There's no way for me to tell how many people have downloaded this, how many people have listened to it. Okay, moving right along. The Tiger Claw TV program. I just put out the music video, and this was scheduled to come out about a week before the music video, so you can tell I'm a little behind. The next video, which is going to be out next weekend, is going to be Jetpack, which is a freeware game, which was once a commercial game, but has since been released as a freeware game. And there's also, the following week, I'm going to put out D-Pad Hero, which I'm really excited about, because this is the first request I've had. This was not a recommendation, this was somebody actually requesting a video. So that's awesome, and I can't wait to put that out. So that's it. Next week, Jetpack. The week after that, D-Pad Hero. After that, I might take a bye week. I might work on a Mugen video, which is in the future. But the big thing right now is the award show. The award show is going to come out on March 21st, first day of spring. This is a program I'm putting together to draw attention to all the independent reviewers out there. Guys who make videos, like the Half Blind Gamer and Irate Gamer and stuff like that. These guys, they don't get it, we don't get paid. These guys, basically, the only recognition they get is a view count and a subscriber count and some comments. So this is my way of kind of giving a little recognition to all the guys who've worked really hard. I give an award to the best video of the winter, but the award doesn't really mean anything. It's just kind of, it's entertainment, like everything else. So that's what's coming up on Tiger Claw TV. I have here on my program for today's podcast, I talk about text-based games, but I talked about that briefly in podcast number 2. So I don't think I'm going to go over that too much. Systems Overload and I have an experiment we're working on with the online text-based games, where we were going to sit down and actually play one of the online multi-user dungeons and talk about it in podcast 5. So stick around for that. Okay, so this was my big objective for this podcast, is I wanted to go over the videos I've been watching lately. Now, the fact that this podcast was delayed means this list has piled up, and some of these videos have been out for a week. So bear with me. I'm gonna try and do it as fast as I can. If any of this sounds interesting to you, the text document that comes with this podcast, the liner notes, are gonna have all the addresses where you can watch all these videos. So here we go. Video Game Takeout put out one for Bionic Commando. Bionic Commando ported to the original Game Boy with a spin-in screen. There were a lot of bad ports for that system. Now, that was a great system, but it was also an early system. So a lot of games when they were ported there didn't quite match up to the way they were in other systems, which, is to be expected. It's portable, you gotta dumb it down a little bit. But Bionic Commando was ported really well, and that was really cool to see that in a video. Kind of takes that's one of the real series video game takeout that gets me nostalgic. So that was cool. That you can watch that on retrowaretv.com. That's still on the main page, I think.
but also in the liner notes there will be an address. Half Blind Gamer put out a video for Othello for the CDI. Half Blind Gamer series, The Crap Digging Investigations, is a good series. It's the only series I've seen where he takes the CDI system, Nintendo CDI, and puts it in an objective light. He looks at some of the games that weren't so bad. I think anybody could put in a copy of Hotel Mario and say, "Oh, the CDI was crap," and maybe the CDI was crap. But to see some of the games looked at objectively is really cool and entertaining. Othello, the Othello video itself, Othello's not a bad game. I like Othello. I used to play Othello with my old man. But this particular game is a good example of the crazy stuff that was happening with full motion video at the time. Just really weird full motion video stuff. So you gotta check out the Half Blind Gamer's Othello. It's an awesome video. Moving right along, a landmark video that, just a landmark video was Still Gaming's Fallout 3. Now, the Still Gamer Lee moved to thatguywithglasses.com. He moved from YouTube. He's not on YouTube anymore. And this was his premiere video on that website. It's good. Check it out. Go to thatguywithglasses.com and watch it. Now, he still uploads these videos on YouTube. If you have YouTube, you can still watch it. I mean, not if you have YouTube, but if YouTube is your only source of videos, you can still watch it. Although, if it is your only source of watching videos, I highly recommend you get out there and watch some of the people who don't put their stuff on YouTube, because there's some really good stuff out there. Specifically on RetroWareTV.com, the site that hosts my blog and a lot of really awesome shows. Now, I've covered everything on my list. Let's talk about the one video that was not on my list, and that's the biggest video that's out right now. Yes, the Happy Video Game Nerds Earthbound. Now this is groundbreaking, okay? It's like 21 and a half minutes, and it talks about the Earthbound series as a whole. And it's the only video that's been nominated for the award, for the review award. And you gotta check it out. It came out, I think, yesterday morning or 2 days ago. It's awesome. Absolutely incredible. I was never much a fan of the Earthbound series. I liked it, but I didn't spend hours upon hours with it, you know. After watching this video, I've got to play that game again. It's just, it's another really cool. I mean, it's the video out right now. It is at the top of the video game review world right now. So go check that out. It's a contender for the Winter Review Award. I'm gonna get comfortable here for a minute. Okay. Sparing you the and we're back routine. Been playing a lot of Zork lately. That's the game I've been to, so that's the game I'm going to ramble on about. If you don't know what that game is, this was a game that was put together in 1974 by 4 MIT students.
And one goblin.
Right. And basically, the object of the game was to... it was completely text-based. You'd write in, look around and, get lamp. As a matter of fact, I think there was a video called Get Lamp about all about Zork and the Zork trilogy. Basically, what you're supposed to do is you go into this house and down into the basement where there's a huge dungeon, and you find treasures, and you bring them back up to the house, and you put them in a display case, which is in the house, and you go back and forth. But that's not explained in the game. When you start the game, it just says, "Here you are," And I read a story recently about a guy who was reminiscing about the old days when that came out, because it came out. They built it in '74, and it came out in 1980, I think. Because it was made for... It had something to do with what it was made on and, where home computers were at the time. I don't know. But I know at that time, not everybody had a computer. So this guy was telling a story about how, every day, he couldn't wait to get to the campus he was working on or something to school, because he would have 5 minutes to play Zork. Because that computer was equipped with Zork, which at the time was an exorbitant amount of memory. I think it was 33K or something like that. It's really small.
Awesome.
Yeah. And just the idea, and there was no instruction booklet either. Mm-hmm. So he had no idea what he was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Just the idea of running around in
He couldn't save the game either, probably, right?
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I doubt it. Just interactive fiction, just that being like the rockin' thing. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I wish I could find that story and post it somewhere. So that's pretty much what I've been playing.
But that's amazing. Like, think about that. Here's a text-based game. You have to start from scratch every time. So basically, that means every time you do stuff, all you're doing is...
No, you could. There was a save feature in the game, but I don't think he could at the time.
Okay.
The guy who told that story.
Okay. Still, though. Okay, so that still brings us to his situation, which is he has 5 minutes to play a text-based game from scratch. And he was in love with the idea. And the game, he doesn't know what to do, and he's walking around the house. And that was one of the highlights of his day. And I understand him. And Critical Failure understands him. And you guys understand him. Will anybody growing up today understand that?
So I've been playing a lot of... I actually tried to get into Warlords again. A little bit. And I don't think it's going very well.
And we're here to talk about why. Let our feelings out, resolve issues, explain problems. This is Study Club Radio number 6. I'm Systems Overload.
And I am Critical Failure. Moving right along. So, Warlords. I kept looking at that game, and one of the things that fascinates me about Warlords is a statement of where video games were at the time. And I kept having this feeling that, like, okay, video games at this time were not as self-explanatory as they are now. Remember when we were talking about manuals?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I don't think that's the case. I just think it's that game, Warlords. Here's the picture of a horsey. Okay, I'm pressing the button. What does it do? Nothing!
Okay, I think you might be onto something. Because just thinking back to Police Quest, yeah, you could pretty much figure that game out without reading anything about how to move stuff. You try the arrows, you try the jump, you try etc. etc.
Yep.
But at the same time, let's think of modern games and
Modern games aren't all self-explanatory either. I mean, they are to some extent.
But I think would today's strategy game be a bit more self-explanatory than Warlords was back then?
Even as recent as Heroes of Might and Magic, that's a pretty easy game to pick up, despite being really difficult. Like it's not easy to say be successful in that game, but I picked up that game when more or less knew what to do right away. It took like a good 20 minutes to try and figure out how to actually move my character in Warlords.
I'm trying to think of how the strategic games today are, and I don't play those at all.
Yeah.
So
just like a few top picks, not really into this whole genre. But in all fairness, I never checked out Warlords 2, not even for a second. And according to the screenshots, they look very close to the same.
What I'm thinking though is Heroes of Might and Magic. If I recall correctly, Heroes of Might and Magic 3, the big one. I did show you how to start playing it.
Right.
So that gives you. I mean, there's learning of being good, and there's learning how to use the interface and all that. And I think maybe those are two different issues, because the interface, I think, is easier. Let me think about this. Is interface easier today, or is it the actual content of getting good at the game that's easier today? That's something I would like to think about. I'm gonna now think about that.
Well, I think they have more. There's more they can do with the interface. I think in those days of like Warlords, when they made an interface for a game like that, they were very limited in how they could do it, simply because of technology.
But your problem with Warlords is not even utilizing strategy to win the game. The problem right now is literally playing the game and discovering the game's capabilities.
Yes, I load it up in DOSBox and I get it going, and I'm like, okay, this is a game the Systems Overload plays, so I want to play it a little bit so we can have something to discuss. Because if you go to GameFAQs.com and look that game up, there's a lot to it. You know what I mean? It's not like Mario Brothers where it's as simple as going to the right as far as you can. You know what I mean? Like it's a really in-depth game, and I don't know what it is. It's like something I don't want it to be one of those things that goes over my head, so I want to try it and say. Because if you play a game, you can say, okay, I've played this game and I don't like it. Or, okay, I've played this game and it's nice, I do like it. I can't play the game, and that's really bothering me, so I can't develop an opinion one way or the other.
But here's the thing. Again, maybe that's why. Maybe the games back then you had less to do, so a game didn't require that much investment in hooking you up. Because if you got a new game, guess what? The other options are playing Fox Kids, watching Fox Kids, and I don't know, maybe playing basketball. Right now, there's so much out there that the game doesn't really has to hook you. Like that, you were hooked in the game because you made the commitment to buy this game, and
something like the box art was enough for a hook.
Entertainment. You were hooked easier already on it because you didn't have much competition for your attention with other games and other shit going on.
Yeah, I never looked at it that way, but you're right. Incidentally, I'd be really interested in seeing what the box art of that game looked like.
I still have a box in the closet for Warlords.
That would be cool to see.
We will do that one day, and we'll maybe put up some scans, or you guys can just go online and look up what the box looked like.
Yeah, I'll check out GameFAQs.com, and if the box art's on there, I'll post it on the website with this podcast. Speaking of box art, do you ever play any of the Atari 2600 games?
Nope.
Some of the Atari 2600, I'm not gonna generalize all of them because there were some good games on that system, but there were some truly awful games with some really good box art. Classic example: Yar's Revenge or Defender. You ever play Defender? That's a game that's been on many platforms.
Sounds familiar.
Okay, it's like one of the classic arcade games where you have a little ship and it goes to the right or to the left, and across the bottom is little pixelated people, and then ships come down and pick up the people, and you have to shoot the ships, and then the people drop and catch them before they hit the ground and explode. Okay, Atari 2600, the graphics were so bad, like each pixel was like the size of a golf ball or something. You know, of course I'm exaggerating a little bit. It was what technology they had to work with at the time. But the box art for these games, simply because in those days, when you played a video game, much more of it was focused on your imagination. You know what I'm saying? Like Missile Command. Of course, you know, there was a great big consoles and all kinds of fancy stuff like there was on the box art. But when you played it, it was kind of implied that you had to imagine these kinds of things. Well, like playing games now, every once in a while I get this kind of feeling like that's kind of been taken somewhere, like I can't really imagine anything anymore. You ever get that feeling like the whole experience has become kind of prepackaged?
I think I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I guess that's one of the reasons why I play classic games. Okay, so now we're going to do the obligatory quick segment on the Winter Review Award, which is a show that I'm putting out March 21st. I think that's the first day of spring. It's either going to be the 21st or the 22nd. And it's starting to become like, okay, this is just around the corner, so I really need to start, doing some serious work on this thing. And I'm just going to mention real quick a guy named The Deft Gamer who puts out reviews on YouTube. He's not quite as well known as like the Happy Video Game Nerd, or should I say James Rolfe, that guy, Angry Video Game Nerd. But I think he's the king of video game reviews without showing himself, just recording over the mic and then coming up with a video by putting in footage and pictures. It's a great video for an awful game. What are you looking for?
The lid for the almonds. It's next to your leg.
Almonds. There you go. Right. So the link for that video will be in the liner notes. Go check it out. I think that one's definitely gonna have a mention in the video because it was really good. Okay, now that all that is out of the way, because I really hate talking about that video. Really hate talking about it. Why? Because I don't want to run. Some part of me feels like I'm running it into the ground.
What?
You know what I mean?
Running what? The Winter?
Yeah, the Winter Review Awards.
You're not.
You don't think so?
Not at all. One mention per show, not going back to it again during the show, is exactly how you want to promote an upcoming event. So once again, let's talk about the Winter Review Awards, 21st, and they're what are they? Let's hear it again.
It's an award that I give that means absolutely nothing to my favorite review of any video game, classic or otherwise, from winter 2008 to 2009. That's like from sometime in December to March 21st or 23rd. That means if a video comes out, which takes the cake, the day before the Winter Review Awards comes out, it will be in the video. The night before it comes out, I will be hard at work polishing this thing off and making sure it's up to date. It's gonna be cool, man.
And its format is video, necessarily, right? Basically, all videos that have to do with classic video games, or somewhat have to do with classic video games, all those videos are eligible, including the ones you make, that you send to us or upload somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I've taken an interest lately in trying to come up with some original piece of programming from Tiger Claw Entertainment. There's a game that I've been working on with a friend of mine who will only let me refer to him as NG Varatsu as it relates to the internet. A guy who will not appear on any show I've made before.
Warning. Promises about the guy not appearing on any show may not be real. Or legally binding.
Pick or it didn't happen. Anyway, right. So we've been working on an RPG that we've been working on since mid-1995, 2005 maybe. Just kind of on and off. And it started as like a real simple, a simple like tech test for an RPG. And then we said, okay, well let's see if we can make an entire RPG center around one town. Okay, so it started to blow up a little bit, and now it's become this huge mess of like programming and experiments, and it's blown into this huge epic story, which will never ever be finished. But at the same time, I want to get it up somehow. So there will, and that game is called Zion Story. If you look back on the previous Tiger Claw TV videos, I've like hidden little screenshots from that game in there. Like in the Identity Parade video, there's a couple of screenshots from this game in there. And if you the latest video, the latest music video, the Katavit video, the thing at the end, the conversation between two characters at the end of the video, that's from Zion Story. So look for a demo from Zion Story. So lately in World of Warcraft, I've been working on an alternate character by the name of Geoff, after the skateboarder Geoff Rowley, who is an enchanter, the first enchanter I've played, and a tailor. Mm-hmm. And that's been kind of fun. But I'm noticing that enchanters have a really hard time making money.
This is not true. Enchanters have a really hard time being. Few enchanters know what it means to be an enchanter. Because what the enchanter is dependent on, to me, mostly one thing and one thing only: appropriate and smart spamming. Because you're very rarely going to, you're gonna be able to auction your enchants. I mean, yeah, there's the wands and all that stuff, but that's less than 1/10 of what.
Not to mention the regular, at least when you're a low level enchanter, the regular stuff that you normally auction, the enchanted pieces of equipment, the green pieces of equipment that you pick up when you're running dungeons, you disenchant those to get your enchanting skill up. Yes. You can't just auction them.
Right. I did that. But the thing is, now you gotta make money, right?
Right.
So you know what?
I find this guy just sitting in the inn and just waiting for my other characters to feed him disenchant stuff.
Well, that's what you're completely wrong in the approach. What you gotta do is you gotta do this one. Every time you go to a new area, advertise enchanter looking for low level enchants. They ask for tips, and you say, "I'll give you an enchant," and they give you tips, and they will. Many of them have high level alts, and to them giving you at level 5 1 gold for a stupid enchant is not much, and they will do that. So while a lot of spamming will be worthless, you will run into a lucky case where somebody will give you 1, 2, 3, etc. Gold. Another thing, you gotta be smart with your spamming. If you spam a lot, people will just get upset. So you kind of gotta gauge how to.
Wait. If you spend a lot,
spam a lot.
Spam a lot.
Yeah, spam.
Ham and jam and spam a lot.
Ham and jam and spam a lot. I'm sure everybody on the podcast got that reference because we are dorks. But yeah, that's the important thing, is like kind of being a seller but not being a hard seller. Come on, get my enchant. That's gonna overpush it. You kind of gotta gauge yourself, and I like to think I'm pretty good at that, like not being too hard of a bargainer, but at the same time not being somebody who backs off too easily.
Playing it wrong or not, I've still been enjoying it because it's a new aspect of the game.
Very different from all the other trades.
Yes, very, very different. Very, very different. It seems like I've had to change my strategy a little bit. Well, not a lot, but just like the whole aspect of how you make money.
Every time you go into a group, do you say, if maybe you want any chance, let me know?
I think I just picked up enchanting for him, like the last couple times I played.
because I brought him all the way up to level 10 before I picked a profession.
Okay.
Simply because he's my third alt, or my second alt, my third character.
Okay.
So it took a long time to figure out what I was going to do with him. I have of course, my prime character that we play with is an alchemist and an herbalist, which is probably the most I've been enjoying the most, because those. What's that? It's your least favorite?
Yes.
Really? Why?
Because I want to save the potions for myself, and I'm tempted to sell them at the same time. Whereas, for example, all the clothing that you made or weapon that you made, you don't need a second.
But do you see what's different there?
Yeah.
All the clothing is worthless. The thing about it's not that it's worthless. It's just that what are you going to do with 5 linen belts?
You're not gonna make them.
but with an alchemist, every potion that comes out of you, even the low level ones, have at least a little bit of usefulness.
No, I disagree completely. Well, not with that aspect, but with the fact that you don't need 5 linen belts, which is why you don't make linen belts at all. You make bolts of linen cloth, and then you make green items out of those, and then you auction those off.
That's what sucks about having a tailor alt, is now I have a use for the linen cloth.
Mm-hmm.
I was selling it, like I would rack up like 5 full stacks of linen cloth and then sell it, but now I can't do that anymore.
You can.
All my alts previously all had really high first aid skills, because we're like, I have all this linen cloth and nothing to do with it. Let's just pour it into somebody's first aid skill.
But on the other hand, though, it is set up so that if you're playing a character normally, okay, like doing whatever you need to do for the quest wise, you get just enough linen cloth to advance past linen cloth to bulk cloth. You see what I'm saying for one character?
Right.
That's if the game is done right. I'm not sure it still is anymore, but originally it was definitely designed so that, by the time you are done with linen cloth drops areas, you are done with making items out of linen cloth as well. So the game kind of, does that make sense?
Yeah, no,
Okay,
I get what you're saying.
I just want to make sure I got it all right. And by the time you're done with wool cloth drop areas, you are also done with wool cloth item making, and so forth, etc. Usually you run into a hitch at some point around level cloth.
That also requires you to go to the places that it kind of set up for you. You know what I mean?
But you do that as part of playing the game. Level 40, you're going to level 40 areas.
Yeah, but that varies. You know what I mean?
Not shouldn't that much.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. I mean, that's just part of having a sandbox game where you can go where you want. It's just how the game works.
God bless sandbox games.
Yeah, really. I'd like to figure out what the first ones were.
I don't know what I can think of as Heroes Quest 1, which is completely different from all the other Sierra games in that aspect.
Yeah.
Right.
I liked taking it old school because that's just how we roll. Ultima, the original Ultima. You ever play that game?
Mm-hmm.
It's like 1987 or something like that. You should look that up. I have it somewhere. I'll let you play it. It was basically what it did was it had a map screen like the old traditional RPG maps, and then it had little dungeons. And when you went into the dungeon, it was a first-person dungeon crawler. But the thing was, there was no order in which you should do the dungeons. There were on the map there were certain kingdoms. There was no order which you should do the kingdoms.
But were there some kingdoms considerably different than others?
Yes. Well, not considerably, because it was in 1987. The graphics were all the same, but the content was different.
See, I don't think that's as good of an approach, because what that means is you have to go all over the place to figure out where probably 1 for your level might be now.
Maybe not a sandbox, but definitely not linear.
I'm not saying not linear. I'm not saying that's not a sandbox. I'm just saying one of the good things about World of Warcraft and Heroes Quest, in fact, a lot of other games, is it would naturally, you're not gonna walk away from a level. You'll start in a level 1 area. If you walk a little further, you're not gonna end up in a level 50 area. You're gonna end up in a level 10 area.
Mm-hmm.
And the quests also will tell you which way to go. You're not gonna get, with a few exceptions, you're not gonna be forced to run through high level areas at level 20.
That's the way Dragon Warrior was. First Dragon Warrior, which is now seemingly unplayable because they put you in an area. Just imagine World of Warcraft, but 2D, a top-down bird's eye view, and there was no indication as to where to go. There was no, but you had your one castle that you started next to. It was like, say, I don't know, in World of Warcraft it would be the essence of like the human newbie area. As you ventured out further, the monsters get a little bit harder, and then as you ventured out further, you'd find another town which sold different equipment, and get little different scraps of information. That is probably that came out after Ultima, so I'm not gonna say it's the first sandbox.
I know I'm thinking of Ultima. I'm thinking of the car. That's why it sounds so familiar. Hey, folks, just got a new Versa. Sorry.
Woo! All right. So you think that wraps it up for our World of Warcraft discussion for now?
Help you.
Yeah. My favorite part of the show. It really is.
Okay, cool.
Yes, it really is. Magic the Gathering, right? So this is a game I've been playing with my older brother. For all you Magic the Gathering players, I've been playing since 4th edition. That's roughly 1995, maybe 94 or so. I've been playing this game a long time, okay? And back in those days, they would make cards with abstract powers that didn't make any sense. You'd look at them and think, okay, well, this card can, I don't know, go back to your hand. That's not going to help you. But the idea was the player would have to collect these cards and use their intellect to put together combos and so on and so forth to win the game. Now, they have these decks that are pre-made that have, like, it's just insanity. It's like, okay, I spent $20 on this pre-made deck, and it can wipe anything you've ever put together. You know what I mean?
Do you want me to say my comment?
What was your comment about Magic the Gathering? Let's have it.
This is what actually I disagree with you there.
Really?
But the particular scenario you're describing, it would seem to me that the game would favor the intellect as opposed to the desire to spend money. And
it did once. It does not now.
No, I'm saying it does now. With the scenario you're describing, it does now. Because before, your skill would be dependent on being willing to buy lots and lots of cards and finding those weird matching ones. Whereas now, you can get a good deck with a single purchase. So the person who has a lot of money, a lot of time, is not favored. The person who's smart with playing with a pre-made deck is favored. If the two players have the same deck, essentially the same cards, the better player wins.
Do you know what the difference? You know why I disagree with you? Because I have a deck. I have a white deck that my older brother built. I think in 1997 or so. And this was like when me and my two brothers, two of my brothers, not all my siblings play this game. When we would sit down and play, whoever was using this deck, because it got passed around a couple times, would wipe the floor. I mean, all the classic expensive cards of the time. I'm not going to get into specifics, but this was really well thought out and it was good put together. And I sat down with my older brother yesterday 2-3 days ago, to actually play, and he used some of the pre-made decks. Didn't even touch them. It's just like I don't know if it's the cards.
The pre-made ones won.
Yes, I don't know if it's because the new cards they're making are now more powerful or what, but
that deck is accessible to a player who's willing to buy it. You don't have to. I mean, it's easy enough to have. It's like this, okay? Let's say we all familiar with the game of chess.
Chess.
Okay. Right?
Yes. Good game.
Now let's suppose that there are two options. One, everybody gets the same. One queen, 2 knights, 2 pawns. 8 pawns, 2 bishops, etc. 2 rooks. That's accessible to anybody. Anybody can buy their own set of that with one single purchase. That's one way of playing chess, for example. To make them out for a Magic analogy. The other way would be you buy a box, you open the box, and you want to get as many queens as possible. And the winner is the guy who's going to spend the most time looking for the queens. Okay? Now that favors the buyer over the strategist. The description right now is everybody can get this pre-made deck and try to win with that deck. It depreciates the skill of deck building considerably. Okay, I'll give you that. But it makes the skill of playing versus collecting, spending money on. You're not favored by spending money looking for the rare card. I remember when Magic the Gathering came online, and you would get an X number of packs a day for free, and the winners would be those who would utilize all those packs the most. Every day they would rip out 4 new packs or whatever that was, and they ended up with having 10 Mega Archangel whatever, and those players were favored very, very much, whereas people who were maybe very good players but just didn't spend the entire time
never played the online version.
So right now, what I'm hearing, according to your scenario, is a new player could have a very good deck without spending a meticulous amount of time gathering it up and money.
I don't know. I'm kind of split on that. It bothers me because I have this old deck that I love to death and it won't do anything anymore. But at the same time, it does make the game easier to pick up for the newbies.
And it depends, I guess, whether you think deck building favors good players or just... on one hand, you could say deck building favors good players. Okay, and the people who dedicate to the game. But on the other hand, maybe it favors people who are a little too dedicated to the game and people who have the money and a limited amount of time and money to spend on it. Because if a beginner or if an average player cannot have a deck that can build a player who's really dedicated to the game, it really doesn't make it fun for the first.
Yeah. Any comments about Magic the Gathering? Go ahead and write in.
Man, I talk a lot.
That's all right. It's a talk show.
Yeah.
I had a similar conversation with my English professor today. We were supposed to write just like I told you when we had lunch. I was supposed to write several pages literary analysis, and I told my English professor I can't write that many pages because I end up saying the same thing over and over again. Her response was, "I think it's better to be concise than to be brief." I don't know what that means.
I don't either.
Maybe it means I'm going to fail English.
I think it is actually what you're saying. You're saying the same thing over again. Being concise and being brief is pretty much the same thing.
Being redundantly redundant is terribly redundant.
Yeah, succinctly put.
All right, that ran long, which is good because. And we're back! You know what time it is now? It's time for letters, or rather, messages from GameFAQs.com. Last week, our big question was classic games and snacks. What snack foods, or junk food, or gourmet food, or whatever, do you associate with classic games, if any? Snacks are not a snack is not an actual food item.
It is.
A snack is a generalization of various food items you could eat in between meals. And Systems Overload and I encountered someone who was just grasping the language and thought a snack was maybe an animal or some kind of bread item.
Help me, you take my wild snacks.
I don't know what a snack looks like. They're very delicious. Okay, first letter. Master Yogurt writes, I have a fantastic memory of eating sweet tart ducks, rabbits, and eggs with my friend in elementary school while we were playing Sonic 2.
I should really have dinner first.
Whenever I eat these things, it's Easter again. Yay! It's ultra nostalgic. They make me feel good every time. This topic gets cookies.
I remember, says, I believe the gentleman's name is Arguro. I remember spending the weekend at my friend's house and eating Lucky Charms while playing Real Monsters for the SNES. I also have nightmares, about red Kool-Aid on my NES thanks to my sister spilling some at once.
And there we go. The first time it's mentioned when you cross snacks with classic video games. This is something I didn't realize until after I already made the question. Some piece of classic video game equipment gets ruined.
Yes.
All right. More into that later because I know that comes up in a lot of these letters.
Mm-hmm.
Ryu138 writes, I don't really remember having any specific snack foods or things of that nature so much as remember having to practically get pulled away from the TV when it came time to eat dinner. Okay, that's completely unrelated to the topic now. I also do clearly remember summers in the early 90s when my friends and I had season passes to the pool every day after closing. We would come back, go to our respective homes to eat dinner, and then play SNES games while smelling the chlorine. So chlorine, summertime, and sometimes having the AC on will make me think of those times. Fun times. I also do remember the Nintendo cereal system and about how Kraft mac and cheese with Super Mario Brothers / World shapes. Please tell me that was not just in my head. Yeah, I remember the Nintendo cereal system. Nintendo came out with a box of cereal and it had 2 little bags of cereal in it. And the commercial was awesome. I know it's on YouTube. They had a little jingle. Nintendo, it's a cereal. Wow, it was awesome. Gotta look that up. What do you got?
I got something from Jim Murray. Jim Murray. No, this is Jim Murray. Jim Merrill? I can't. Jim Merrill. Okay. Kind of going off on a tangent, but I became very ill one night. I rented Super Mario Brothers 2. I ended up throwing up a lot of zoodles. But I actually associated more with the big yellow bucket than the game of zoodles, to be honest. My favorite Saturday morning, more like brunch meal, was bacon sandwiches. Whether I was playing games or watching Muppet Babies, eating one the way they used to be prepared always takes me back. I really should have had dinner first.
Bacon sandwiches. Good letter. It kind of makes me want a bacon sandwich. Primarily because I don't have any bacon in my household.
To Denny's!
To Denny's! This is a really good letter, okay? I also do remember the Nintendo cereal system and about Kraft mac and cheese with the Super Mario Brothers Super Mario World shapes. Please tell me it was not just in my head. Okay, that's a quote. And then they leave the YouTube address for the commercial. That is going to be... Okay, now, if you want to watch this commercial and you don't want to look it up, go to the Tiger Claw TV message forums. They are on the website, which is http://tigerclawtv.110mb.com. Go to the message boards. I will put this link up there so you can see the commercial for the Nintendo cereal. Around elementary school, summertime, I always used to swim and then get out and play Sonic on the Genesis. Even to this day, I still play Sonic Adventure after the finals are done. So summer reminds me of Sonic and vice versa. I really don't eat much when I play video games. Just usually some pizza and orange chicken during brawl tournaments. So, if there's anything I can associate pizza and orange chicken with, it's SSBB.
Cinder6 says, I never like to eat while playing video games. Either you get the controls greasy, salty, wet, or you have to constantly pause the game to clean off your fingers. While Crazy Train says, I eat Golden Grams right out of the box. That's all they call it. Crazy Train says.
And here we have it. Destruction of controllers with grease.
When I first got the previous computer I had, I made a rule never to touch the keyboard without washing my hands first if I was eating. Mm-hmm. Lasted for a little while.
Same thing with our computer when that one first came. I actually saw a keyboard that I bought for a friend of mine several Christmases ago. The entire keyboard was a single sheet piece of plastic rubber. So if you got anything on it, you could just take the whole keyboard, which was flexible by the way, and just run it under the faucet.
Okay.
It was actually quite terrible and didn't work very well. But anyway, let's do a couple more of these, and then we'll wrap it up. Pizza first and foremost. How many controllers have I soiled with grease throughout the years? But as for a more snack type item, it's all about the bagel bites. Ironically, also pizza. They taught me how to use the oven, and more often than not got me in trouble with Mommy. I still remember eating boatloads of them while going through numerous SNES and Genesis games with some of my childhood buddies. That game always makes me think... the game that always makes me think of them the most is Link to the Past. Good game, good food, good letter. Thank you, Emerald Monster. Posted 4709.
Hey, what does Jack Toktai think? Oh, he thinks mint chocolate ice cream always takes me back to The Legend of Zelda. It's what I was eating the first time I played that game. I associate Philly cheesesteaks with World Heroes. This is the place I used to buy mine. Had one of those Neo Geo arcade machines with 3 or 4 games.
Love those.
And I would always pick World Heroes as I waited for my food. Domino's Pizza, any kind, for all those long into the evening request sessions. Hey, you know what I didn't think about until this letter? Thank you, Jack Toktai, by the way. Arcade machines. I've never thought of them as something to do while waiting for food to get here, but that must have been a pretty big thing.
I can only think of a couple places that actually had arcade machines.
And food.
Mm. But that's probably just because of my location.
Right.
You know what I mean? I remember Pizza Hut had some, but I was too young at the time. I don't know if I was too young or what. But
you could associate those with video games associated with eating places. I mean, people, I haven't thought of that.
That's true. That's true. And I like that letter because it talks about the Neo Geo machines. The Neo Geo classic game machines where you'd have one machine and 4 games in it. Awesome, awesome stuff. Love those. Excuse me. Okay. Last letter. Okay. At least on my page.
More. Oh, God.
You have what, 4 more?
4 more.
Just read them quickly.
I'll read them quickly, and I'll also be selective about what part I read.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and... If you got 4 more and I got 1 more, why don't you go ahead and read a couple of yours?
Okay, Koopa64 says, I don't normally like to eat food while playing games either, or carrying conversation with someone for that matter, but if the food isn't messy, sometimes I will. Personally, I thought that topic was going to be about video game brand snacks, like Nintendo Cereal System. Anyone remember that? Yeah, we just did for about half an hour.
Yeah.
And so you had another long line of people who remember Nintendo Cereal System, which we should say is the official sponsor of this week's Tiger Claw TV. The Nintendo Cereal System. It's stale, it's old, and it's no longer usable. Much like Nintendo.
This. Remember, you can watch the commercial on the forums. Go to the forums and check out the commercial. It's in there somewhere. Fried Struck. I'm not making this up. That's the person's name. Writes, I too associate food with games. Chicken cutlets and Tommy Lasorda baseball cards on the Genesis. I'm sorry, I added the word cards in there for some weird reason. Let me read that again.
Wait.
Chicken cutlets and Tommy Lasorda baseball on the Genesis.
Okay, come back and read the first sentence of that letter again.
I too associate food with games.
Mm-hmm. once again. Okay, I think I got it now. Alright, I understand. For a second, I think it was called some sort of baseball type of food. No, okay.
Chicken cutlets and Tommy Lee sort of baseball on the Genesis. Whenever I was at my grandmother's, she made that. Best food she'll ever make. And I would always play with Tommy. Some chips, ketchup, chips, and Golden Axe with my uncle. Gatorade, Giant Goldfish, and Carmageddon 2 on the PC. Oh yes, that was a great summer. Crispers and Propeller Arena on the DC. Barbecue Pita Puffs, and Davis Cup Tennis for the Genesis. Jalapeno Tostito Rounds, and San Francisco Rush 2049 for the Dreamcast. And that's the end of the letter. You know, I'm noticing a trend. Most of the people, I don't know if it's the people who decided to check into this topic or the people who actually associate snack foods with games, we're mostly Sega fans. Or at least write memories of Sega games.
I keep seeing that the controllers that get damaged and destroyed the most are the Nintendo ones. Have you noticed? It's not like the Nintendo people are the most miserable people in the world. This is simply a pattern based on a very poor sampling. And we have 2 more letters. Should I read them?
Yeah, let's see what we got.
Okay, Child of Bodom says, I have memories of relating certain foods to games. I always loved crackers and orange juice. I used to eat them out of a plastic bear jar while playing. Okay, these are happy memories, right? Ninja Gaiden 2, Zelda 2, and WrestleMania Challenge. Next sentence. When I was in 1st grade, I got Jungle Strike for Genesis. You see the pattern here? Unfortunately, I had chickenpox at the same... Okay, it's ruined. I had chickenpox at the same time, but all I would drink was the kiwi, strawberry, and mystic juices. So it reminds me of getting the game being sick. While playing through Silent Hill and Tomb Raider 2, I would always have cold macaroni and cheese. Awesome times.
Is that it?
Yes. And one more letter. Shakey's Pizza always makes me think of Galaga. When I rolled Shakey's, had a small arcade next to the buffet table where
I feel him there.
Where an infamous Galaga machine would relieve me of countless allowances. Every time I smell popcorn, a caving reaches deep into my soul. I think it's craving. I must play Bubble.
Caving. I have a caving! A terrible caving for eggs and bacon sandwiches!
He caves in. A theater my friends and I frequented had 2 bubble machines just opposite the concessions. Not only did they find a way to lighten our pockets of excess quarters, but they also found a way to empty our Velcro wallets for popcorn and drinks. And the change, it always promised another quarter or 2 to bring us back. Hot dogs, cake, and ice cream. Every birthday party during my elementary years promised this. The location, a mini golf course, conveniently placed in between several schools, was the only place to rent our party rooms. 720, Gauntlet, Super Sprint, Tubing, and Rampage. Hey, just named 2 of my favorite games, Gauntlet and Rampage. Were the games. I can even play my Midway collections without the faint smell of hot dogs, excavating long-buried memories of my classmates, and me rambling about the place and all. Hey, dude, one note, probably you should stop storing your hot dogs in the middle of your video games, then you can play those Midway collections. Rampage was our personal favorite of mine, too, but any machine would do. Now I'm hungry. Good note to end the segment on. I'm getting hungry, too.
So let's start with that contest winner, huh? Our previous question of the week was, what character from a video game would you like to know more about for any reason? And I'm talking about small details. Like, say, you want to know where Lara Croft gets her groceries, or how long Mario has been a plumber, or how heavy Samus Aran's armor it is. Any of those questions like that they don't cover in the games. Characters that have either struck you in a certain way that you kind of want to know more about them or anything like that. That was the question of the week. Now, normally what I do is I post the question of the week on GameFAQs.com so that I have a nice long list of replies I can read to you, even though not very many people use our message board. Now, I did post that, and it took me so long to come up with this episode that topic actually 404'd, so I don't have that. However, the best response to that question was to receive a DVD of the 1974 martial arts classic starring Sonny Chiba, The Street Fighter. I'm not talking about the Van Damme movie about the game Street Fighter. I'm talking about Sonny Chiba's Street Fighter, okay? If you don't know who Sonny Chiba is, think back to that movie Kill Bill, okay? Sonny Chiba was Hattori Hanzo. He played the sword maker in that movie. Classic movie. The theme song from that movie is what I use for the theme song of my show, and the whole Tiger Claw Entertainment has kind of had a running kinship with that movie. There was one one video I made a while back, the big one actually, the one that has all the hits, And the plan was at the end of the Awesome Possum video, I was going to show a fight scene from that movie, because that was a bad game. So I figured, okay, you sat through the review of the bad game, and I'll show you something good. Now, I had to rewrite the ending because I didn't know how to put that in. And, of course, the one that I rewrite and had to kind of slop together an ending, that's the one that everybody watches. But I'm starting to digress. Now, I had only one response in the forums. And before I read that, and the winner of the contest, let's talk about the forums for just a second. If you have anything to say, any comments you can make about the show, you want to respond to any questions, drop in your 2 cents, I'd be happy to read it on the air. There's 2 ways you can get it to me. First, you can email it to me directly at ajc1490@gmail.com. And the more practical solution is to use the message forum. Now, the message forum is at the website. The website is http://tigerclawtv.110mb.com. That's http://tigerclawtv.110mb.com. Now, if that's too much for you to remember, don't worry about it. An easier way to get to it is to go back to the podcast, the Podbean page where you found this particular podcast, and the link is off on the right side. Yes, I know it's been broken, but before I put this up, I'll fix it. So if you're listening to this now, it's fixed. That's a way you can get to the website and therefore the forum. While you're at it, I also have an album that I made of joke songs, and it's called Double Nintendo, and that's also available on the Tiger Claw TV website. So, Retro Man writes in, I've always wanted to learn more about Giovanni, the 8th gym leader of the Pokemon Blue-Red versions, the Game Boy games, not the Saturday morning cartoon series. All we know is that the 8th gym leader and the leader of Team Rocket. That's all we know. What really sparked my interest was his description in the instruction booklet, as his description was mysterious as well as having a shadow over his picture. Sure, the TV series shows him occasionally, but the game and the series are 2 different things. I always wanted Nintendo to do more with that character besides giving us a ton of suspense, only just to battle him in that gym battle. It would have been great if they made him a major villain in all the games, and then just replacing the bad guys every new generation of Pokemon games. Sure, you can battle him in the Gold and Silver series, but that was more fan service than anything else. Feel free to contact me if you've spotted any flaws, as I haven't played the old Pokemon games in years. Thanks, Retro Man. You know, I never got that far in the original Pokemon series. I played Pokemon Blue when it was brand new, and that was the thing. And I think I got about as far as the 3rd gym, and I had to put it down. Not because it was a bad game, mind you, but I was in middle school at the time, and this was at the height of the Pokemon rage. Even though I enjoyed the game, the rage, the phenomena that was Pokemon is just too much. Was at that time and still is just too much for me to handle. Okay, so that was the contest winner, Retro Man. I will be contacting you soon about your information that you would like me to mail the DVD to. And thanks for listening. This is Tiger Claw Radio. You gotta listen every month. Every month, you never know what's gonna happen. I could just decide on a whim to throw out a contest like I did this time, and that was just kind of just to test the water and see if anybody was listening. Sure enough, somebody was. Now, let's talk a little bit about the show, Tiger Claw TV. Now, Tiger Claw TV is the main star project that I've been working on. This is, as any of you who've listened to the earlier podcasts know, this was kind of like an extra that I started putting together. So, the big landmark is 100 subscribers. Just had my 100th subscriber on the show. Thanks a lot for that. And up-and-coming videos are Self-Destruct. Self-Destruct. If you've never heard of this, and it's very little known, so you probably haven't. Self-Destruct is an arcade-style game, a lot like, it's a space shooter, top-down, kind of like Galaga, but it's got really fast-paced arcade action. Kind of like Gradius, but more fast-paced. Imagine a cross between Smash TV and Galaga. That's Self-Destruct. Okay, and it's super small, super addictive, and most of all, super fun. So that's going to be my next video. Also, I had like a complete NES retrospective that got put on hold because in the near future is the Spring Video Reviewer Awards. Now, the Winter Video Review Award show was a big success, so of course, when the spring is over, I'll have to do one for all the videos that have come out this spring. And this time I wanted to use footage from the videos, so I've been emailing all the respective video makers for permission, and I have to say, all the video makers have just been totally awesome. I've managed to contact the Happy Video Game Nerd, Kane from 2-Bit Gaming, the Happy Console Gamer, whom I just discovered, and he's awesome, and the Half Blind Gamer I got in touch with, and a couple others. Haven't been able to get in touch with Lee from Still Gaming, but I'm working on that one. So that's what's coming up with Tiger Claw TV. Also, if you watch the show or listen to the podcast, I want to let you know that I am in school now, and school's getting pretty tough. I'm in kind of like an accelerated class right now, and that basically means that just imagine how much like the workload of the average class, double that, and then hire a guy to kick you in the nuts every time you walk in your front door. That's what I'm at right now. So if you notice a slowdown in Tiger Claw TV and Tiger Claw radio production, don't worry. It's just school. Real life always gets in the way whenever you're dealing with video makers or podcasters. That's always the case. Real life gets in the way. Can't believe I haven't mentioned this yet. 2 awesome things have happened with Tiger Claw TV. Vintage Geek tossed me a mention, and Weapon X SJ also tossed me a mention. 2 really awesome YouTube channels, Vintage Video Game Geek and Weapon X SJ. Vintage Video Game Geek sent me a copy of Rockin' Ball for the NES. Great game. It's those of you who haven't played it, it's it's a pinball game, but it has a few mutated modes of pinball. I like simple games that have a lot of different options. And simple games were pretty easy to find in the NES days, but not with a lot of options. And Rockin' Ball definitely had a ton of options. So that was an awesome thing, dude, sending me that game. And it had the instruction booklet with it and everything. So thanks for that. When I play it a little more, I'll tell you exactly what I think of it, but I'd like to get some 2-player action in before I go in depth with that game, because it seems like a really multiplayer type game. There's a lot of 2-player simultaneous play, which is when I was hardcore into the NES, or should I say back in the 8-bit days, because I'm still hardcore into the NES. That was what I looked for, was 2-player simultaneous play. It was because so I could something to play with my brothers. So Rockin' Ball, awesome. Check out Vintage Video Game Geek and Weapon X SJ. Links in the forums. Okay, so the 22nd of September was the first day of fall. That's normally the day I put out the award show for the videos that I've liked for the previous season. However, since I'm a full-time student and my wife is 4 weeks away from delivering a baby, I've been really busy, so it's going to be a little late. But instead of that, we were treated to a new album from Calvin Hansen, one half of Starship Amazing. He put together a mashup album called The Party Cat Imperative, and it's a great album. It's 6 or 7 tracks maybe? It's a pretty short album, but it's a really good dance mix, kind of mashup type thing. He's a really talented guy, so check that out at starshipamazing.com. Oh boy. So what have I actually been playing when I have the time? Been playing a lot of Mega Man lately. I tried to play through Mega Man 3 seriously for the first time. Now, Mega Man 3 is a game that everybody, has played. It's an old game. The people who know the name Mega Man 3, are really familiar with this game. However, me, it was the first time I'd really taken the game seriously and really sat down with it and tried to play through it, tried to beat the game. I may have talked about this in a previous podcast, but the latest is I've gotten all the way I have 1 of the Dartman stages left to go. I got 3 down and 1 to go. And that's the revisited version of Shockman, I I think it is. The one that's in the upper left-hand corner. Ugh. I must have spent at least 3 hours trying to beat that stage, to no avail. So I thought I'd take a break from Mega Man 3 and play Mega Man 2, because I've always been better at Mega Man 2, or at least I've always been able to get as far as that flying dragon, you know, at the end, the boss of the first Wily stage. I'd get to that flying dragon and stop playing. Well, I hadn't tried to play that game in many years, and I realized something. When you get a game over in Mega Man 2, you lose all your E-tanks. And after, somewhere at the end of the Wily stages, you're going to have to face all the robots again. So, if you get a game over while you're defeating the stages, the initial Robot Master stages, then when you reach the Wily stage 4 or whatever it is, where you fight the Robot Masters again, you won't have your E-tanks. And unless you can beat 8 Robot Masters without, getting game over or dying, then you're not going to do it. And that makes me believe that you have to beat that whole game in one sitting. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. I mean, I don't want to slander the Mega Man games, because, come on, Mega Man is a pillar. It's a pillar franchise, okay? There have been a lot of really bad Mega Man games, I'm not going to argue that. I'm not going to say every Mega Man game was gold, but we're talking about the games. When you talk about Mega Man 2 and Mega Man 3, you're talking about the games that made that franchise. That made it. I mean, because I don't know many people who really owned copies of Mega Man 1 back in the NES days. I know a lot of people did, but let's face it, there's really two schools of thought. There's 2 was the best game, and there's 3 was the best game. It's really how people look at it. And I haven't been able to finish either one, because I'm not good at the series. Yeah, so record-breaking 20 listeners on the last podcast, and it makes me think, I wish that the podcast was better. I wish I had something better for you guys to listen to, but it's just me yabbering on about the latest games I've gotten and what's up. So I want to try and make this a relatively short podcast to kind of give something listenable to the people who are surfing in for the first time. Now that I have a link to the podcast on my YouTube page, I think it's attracting more listeners. And by when I say more, I mean 1 or 2 more, which is a lot to me. Anybody who listens to this podcast, any one person who listens to this podcast is a lot to me. At least enough to make another episode. So, if you check the forum for the website, which is absolutely nobody, but if you do, then you'll know that I just recently got a new computer. My brother-in-law came across a computer that was missing a power source and a hard drive and a couple other things, and he was able to combine it with a few other computers he had lying around to build a Franken-computer, which is all in all about 3 years old. And he sent it to me because I'm in college, because my brother-in-law is awesome. Thanks very much. I'm a big fan of a series, the Wizardry series. Now, I hear a lot of people talk about Japanese imports. It's a favorite subject of game collectors, is things that are imported from Japan. Games that didn't come out in America that were really good. Anyone who likes Sega Saturn has a story to tell about the game they wanted to come out that didn't, because a lot of good Sega Saturn games didn't come out in the States. Well, if you like the Wizardry games, you sing that same song. Because the Wizardry series was designed, I believe, for the Apple II. Wizardry 1 through 5 was on the Apple II, and that and the PC are the only real systems that got every one of those games. And they came out for every system. And when I say every system, I mean every system. I'm talking about there was a collection of Wizardry 1, 2, and 3 that came out on the Sega Saturn, only in Japan, and it also came out, I think, on the GameCube, as recently on the GameCube, which was also only in Japan. The only real console releases we saw here in the States were Wizardry 1, which came out on the NES, and Wizardry 2, which also came out on the NES. There was a 3, but it only came out in Japan, on the Famicom. So, here's the point I'm getting at. I recently came across 2. My good friend, Enji Bratsu, which I always talk about, every podcast I mention Enji Bratsu. Well, he gave me Wizardry 2. Wizardry 2 is special because On the PC version, you had to beat Wizardry 1 in order to get to Wizardry 2. You had to import your characters from Game 1 to get to Game 2. Otherwise, you couldn't play. So Wizardry 2, the NES version, is actually a completely different game from Wizardry for the PC or for the Apple II. A lot of good things to talk about today on Tiger Claw Radio. My video game collection, my retro games, specifically my NES games, I don't like the term retro because it makes me feel old, it is really kind of getting bloated. My good friend Enji Varatsu, who I always talk about, he's been buying a lot of games. He buys games in packages and sends me the ones he doesn't want. And so my collection is just getting pretty big. I wanted very much to do an NES collection video. I have a couple collection videos up on Tiger Claw TV, PS2 and Sega Genesis. I wanted to do an NES one, but I think now I'm going to have to do it in 2 parts. I actually shot one quite some time ago. Before the last podcast, I shot one, and I don't think I can air it now because it's not current. So I think I might have to do a 2-parter, which I don't want to do because I've never done a 2-parter on Tiger Claw TV. I don't like 2-part videos. It's if I'm watching a 2-part video, the part 1 has to blow me away for me to watch part 2. And that doesn't happen very much. Some of the games I got, I don't have them in front of me; they're in the other room. But I've got Shadowgate, which I'm psyched about. I used to own Shadowgate, but the battery was broken in it, so it was like a one-shot deal. You sit down, and if you're gonna play it, then you got to beat it in that sitting. My copy of The Legend of Zelda is like that. The battery is just too old and broken, so you got to beat it in one sitting. So Shadowgate, I'm really psyched about. I also picked up, speaking of batteries, a copy of Dragon Warrior, the original Dragon Warrior, which I haven't tested. If you want to play through the Dragon Warrior games on the original carts, it's very, very important to make sure that battery works and works well, because there's a game that requires a lot of grinding. And if you were to just lose your file in Dragon Warrior, that will kill the entire series for you. Like, I almost wish Dragon Warrior implemented some sort of, one-page password or something. Well, maybe not that big, but think about it. In Dragon Warrior, you always start in the same place. So a password system would only have to incorporate experience. It would only have to incorporate items that you have, spells that you have, and gold. How hard would that be, really? I mean, really think about it. Because look at River City Ransom. River City Ransom, the password system is 3 lines, okay, of maybe 10 characters or so. And that encompasses, 12 different stats? It encompasses your maximum amount of life, which is, can increase during the game. It encompasses your cash, your inventory. It's all there in 3 lines. Dragon Warrior could have had a password system. I don't want to advocate the password system too much because everybody, I know people love it now that the password system is extinct and you can always save. But those old games where the saving was dependent on a battery, which went bad, those games, it's an aging process that happens with the cartridges that we as retro gamers have to deal with. Here's a good question. If anybody out there knows anything about changing batteries in NES games, write into the show, ajc1490@gmail.com. Again, we are dealing with some technical difficulties. I think I'm going to post a direct link to the podcast on the YouTube page. As a matter of fact, if you're listening to this now, that's probably how you came in, because I really didn't want to do that because I wanted the podcast to be part of the website. You go to the website, and the podcast is right there. There's a plug-in right at the bottom. You can just open up your browser, and there it is. But now, with these technical difficulties, I don't think I can do that, because the website just doesn't work. This isn't the first time this has happened either. It happened, I think, about a month ago.
and it was down for a while, and then went back up. Lately, I've been getting messages from people saying, your website's down. It takes me to some place, some other weird site. And then I'll go to my website and it'll be working. But I guess I shouldn't be too angry, because when I made that website, I set out to make a companion site for the YouTube channel. I still wanted the YouTube channel to be the main place that you went. All the videos are there. All the content is there. The website was just, I don't know, some kind of side project, maybe if I wanted to do anything else not YouTube related, then I'd have a place for it. For example, I have a message forum there, which pretty much is just me and Retro Man Presents goes there. But back to my Nintendo collection. I actually went and collected the new games, and here they are. I got Dragon Warrior, brand new. No, not brand new, but I mean I just got it, so it's new to me. Shadowgate. Get this, Mega Man 3. Yes, Mega Man 3. Very excited about that. I just picked up Faxanadu. Now, in my last podcast, I was talking about how I got Adventures of Link, Zelda 2. Faxanadu is usually the comparison model. When you're talking about Zelda 2, Faxanadu tends to come up. When you talk about Faxanadu, Zelda 2 tends to come up. So those games kind of parallel each other. Got one, gotta have the other. Now, me particularly, I want to own this game because anybody who had that Nintendo Power poster from back in the day, the one I'm talking about with all the screens, it had 15 or 20 different screenshots on them. Faxanadu was on that poster. That's originally why I wanted it. But it's actually a really good game. Moving on, I got a game called Dragon Spirit, The New Legend, which is a lot like 1942, except you control a dragon instead of an airplane. The original Mario Brothers, the one that came out before Super Mario Brothers, the arcade-style one. Great game. Great game. And actually, a really good port of the arcade game. The NES game is, virtually the same thing, which you don't see very much. The Little Mermaid, which is one of those Capcom Disney team games that they made in the 8-bit era, like around the time they were putting out DuckTales and Rescue Rangers. So that's pretty good. Haven't tested it though. My pal NG gave it to me because he got it, couldn't get it to work, then he gave me the first one. So that's kind of a question mark. Contra, yeah, the original Contra I picked up for $10. I couldn't be more psyched about that. Super Spike V-Ball, which is a volleyball game made by Technos Japan, where you can play as the Dragon Twins from Double Dragon. Yeah, good game. Back at a time in which when sports games were more about having fun rather than emulating the actual sport. Okay, this is prior to John Madden football and all that stuff. Yes, I love my instant cappuccino. And finally, I got a game called Spy vs. Spy. Now, Spy vs. Spy, when I think back, was one of the first games I ever played. Was Spy vs. Spy. But when I was too young to understand how cartridges and stuff worked, I played that game. I just got it again. That's another one NG bought for me, and it actually came with the guide. Oh, couldn't be more psyched about that. When I was a kid, I couldn't find it because the top label, the end label on the NES game, instead of saying the name of the game, it says Mad. So, Spy vs. Spy was always on my want list, but I couldn't find it because it would be lined up in the games and I wouldn't see Spy vs. Spy, I would see Mad. And I was too young and naive to ask the clerk to let me look through the games when I would buy them, in the little used toy shops. So I got all those games, and I also got, and this I'm going to use as a stocking stuffer and maybe a contest later on down the line, Sega Game Gear. I got a Sega Game Gear copy of Marble Madness, and it's in pretty good shape, and I picked it up for 51 cents. For 51 cents, I knew this had to come home with me. So, I don't know, maybe I'll send it to somebody. I did the same thing with a game called Black Belt for the Sega Master System. I talked about this in the last podcast. It was $1, it was in the case, it had the instruction booklet, I had to bring it home. That's actually going to be sent to the Vintage Video Game Geek, which is an awesome channel. Got to check out Vintage Geek. There will be a link to that. This is the time when I talk about the forums. I like to post my forum. I like to go there and post notes from the show, so you can listen to this and then go see pictures of what I'm talking about. But the website is down, so I'll just say if you somehow come across Vintage Video Game Geek, his stuff is good. He's in my he's a subscriber of mine, so and I'm a subscriber of his. So if you go into that part of my YouTube channel, he'll be in there somewhere. So that's one way you can find him. Or you can just do a search for him, Vintage Video Game Geek. He specializes in a lot of a pre-8-bit era stuff, which is, in my opinion, not an easy subject to tackle. To do like an Atari 2600 review, I mean, it might, maybe it's not that it's not easy. It's just that the market penetration for pre-8-bit reviews is very low. There's not very many guys out there doing that right now. So that's a feather in his cap as far as I'm concerned. So that's something you can go to his channel and see, but you can't really see anywhere else. So I raise my instant cappuccino to you, Vintage Video Game Geek, for that. I have a game that I've been looking forward to for a very long time. My friend Enji Varatsu has purchased a game for me just because he's awesome. Big bro points for you, Enji, because I know you're listening to this. Yeah, you're probably not at all. Anyway, the game is, I'm starting to get off topic, the game is Wizardry 2 Knight of Diamonds for the NES. And I'm going to explain to you why this is really important, okay? Wizardry is a series that goes way back, okay? The first Wizardry game came out in 1981, I believe, for the Apple II. It was the first game to, and check up on me on this. If I'm wrong, please write in, AJC1490. Hold on a second. That was Enji Varatsu himself. Okay, I'm sliding off track. I believe it was the first game to feature decision-based combat, okay? Select fight, select, parry, cast a spell, that kind of thing. And the series went all the way up. There was the numbered Wizardry games. I believe it went all the way up to Wizardry 8, which came out in the early 2000s. And there was a Wizardry 2 game for the PS2. But if you look up, there weren't very many here in the States. But if you look up the Japanese Wizardry series, there was Wizardry games on everything. Everything, man. They're putting out a Wizardry title. There's one for the PSP. They just announced one that's going to come out for the PS3. They had them on the Sega Saturn. This series was everywhere. But here in the States, it's just kind of like a funny little footnote in retro gaming history. It's a game that I played as a kid. Now, the reason why this particular game is special is because the first 3 games in the series, Wizardry 1 was basically, it's a dungeon crawler with 10 levels. Now, the PC version, to play Wizardry 2, you had to beat Wizardry 1, and then take your characters from Wizardry 1 into Wizardry 2. Okay, so it was more like a scenario add-on to the first one. But they took that game and made it into a standalone game for the NES. So I've been playing these games since I was a little kid, and I've never got to that point where you get to play the Knight of Diamonds. Now, when this game comes, finally, yeah, very psyched about that. Oh my gosh. But following this series of games has been just heartbreaking. It's one of those things where half the games didn't come out in the States. I think Enji knows more about this kind of stuff than I do. But let me put it to you this way, okay? If you've never experienced the Wizardry series and you want to experience a good retro RPG experience, it's first person, but it's good. Go check out Wizardry 5 for the Super Nintendo. That came out here in the States, and it is the best console port. They put it out for the SNES, and they put textures in the walls, and the art for the monsters is way better. I mean, it was that way for the NES games, but this puts the Wizardry games and utilizes the Super Nintendo technology in a great way. And I mean, the music was great. Everything about it was great, okay? It's just that we got so few console ports of these games. We got 1, 2, and 5 for the SNES. And that's pretty much it. So check that out. And I really think you'll like it. They made a cart for the Super Famicom, which had the first 3 Wizardry games that were standalone that you can play. And it only came out in Japan. But it was for the Super NES, and it had those 3 games. And there's a switch in the options where you can change the language to English. So you can really play this. I know there's a guy named Scarlet Spider who did amazing videos on this thing, okay? So if you have the patience, you can go and play with those options, get it changed over to English, and you can play them that way. But they are not easy. These the best way I can describe the frustration that's gone behind my love for the Wizardry series. It is the ghosts and goblins of RPGs, very much so.
Vintage Video Game Geek, another video maker on the scene here recently, got discovered big time that way. He had, and I love to talk about this because this is such like a 1 in a million shot story. He had a video where he just decided to play the AVGN theme just on his I think his daughter's Fisher-Price piano toy. And it's just like a silly video. He didn't really take it seriously. But lo and behold, James Rolfe himself actually favorited that video. And that showed up on James Rolfe's YouTube page. And just thousands and thousands of people checked out that video. And subsequently, last I checked, he's at 800 subscribers, up from like 150 or something before he made that video. So that's a testament to sharing videos and the power that goes along with word of mouth and that sort of thing. And that brings me to my next segment, something I'm going to call the fail bag. I am going to open up and save different topic posts from GameFAQs.com and read them off as if they were letters, because I don't have any real letters. So this is the fail bag. So let's open up the fail bag and see what we do. See how we do. Okay, so Pippins91 writes, I dislike how people talk down on the Atari 5200. The games, first of all, are well designed and have more power memory and high-resolution graphics than the more successful 2600. The games, I feel, are more fun to play because of that, and are more like the arcade versions, like Pac-Man and Centipede. The controllers with this system are rather hard to play with, but there are third-party controllers that you can buy to replace your old controllers, which, being the Atari Wiko command controllers, I found myself playing the 5200 for an hour on occasion when I do play it. That's even longer than I play my NES sometimes. Atari 5200 is, in my mind, by far, in my mind, beats out the 2600. And I don't care that the 2600 had more of a library of games. The 5200 had better gameplay and better graphics, and people should look into this and buy them. I got one from a flea market for $40. It's a little beat up, but not severe. Where it has minor scratches or cracks on it. The system works like new out of the box, and I'm a proud owner. Maybe by my words that you, being the Game FAQs board members, will find out what I have said to be agreeable. Okay, so these are my comments on that. Before I get into opinion, if you look at the lifespan of the Atari 5200, it was not successful for a couple of reasons. One, the big one, was the controller. The controllers were faulty. They broke. Okay, now if you're going back and buying an Atari 5200, you can buy a third-party controller that fixes this problem. That's one of the things he says here, is third-party controllers. It's a fact that the hardware in the Atari 5200 is better than the Atari 2600, making what's the word I'm looking for? The potential quality of the games is higher in 5200. However, because the system failed, there aren't as many games. I think if you buy a 5200 now, you will be shopping for games for maybe a month, and then you'll have pretty much all the games in the library that you want to own. Now, it could, at this point, be a good system if you get controllers that work, but I would definitely recommend looking into the library before you actually buy one. This guy has one for $40. Personally, for $40, I'd look into a ColecoVision myself. If you're looking for the other 8-bit alternatives from the NES, not as old as the Atari 2600, but different from the NES, I would say ColecoVision would be a better way to spend $40. There's another really good one here in the fail bag, which was not a letter at all, but I'm going to read it as if it was one. The best NES games to start a 6-year-old with. My cousin is 6, and she has problems with understanding the basic fundamentals of movement in games. She'll only press and release the D-pad once rather than hold it down, and she'll hold down the A or B buttons rather than tap them. So best games to start with a 6-year-old. Now, this was a big long topic, and basically, the consensus was Super Mario Brothers. The following post was: it seems like a generic choice, but any of the Super Mario Brothers games are tried and true methods of turning many kids into gamers. And is that not true? Think about the first game you played. I mean, if you're not from the older generation, I mean, if you are a child of the 8-bit era, Super Mario is in there somewhere in your early gaming memories. I'm willing to bet. And if you are, maybe you grew up with Donkey Kong, you know. And he's in Donkey Kong. His name was Jumpman then, but he's in it. Well, my response was, in an attempt to give you a different answer from Super Mario Brothers, Bubble Bobble. Bubble Bobble is a great choice if you have a youngster in your family that you're trying to introduce to the classics. And the reason why is because the dinosaur characters in Bubble Bobble are great for kids, and the gameplay is a little stiff in Bubble Bobble, but you can continue as many times as you want. As long as you're having fun with that game, you never have to get game over. And start from the beginning. Another good example is Excitebike. Excitebike is a good choice for kids because it has that track editor. That's a really good place for kids to be creative. I remember when I was 4 playing Excitebike with the track editor and having a really good time with it. It's also it's important that game is easy to pick up. It doesn't take long to figure out exactly what the rules are and exactly what you have to do to play the game successfully. And finally, the last choice that I picked out for a good game to start a youngster with is California Games. California Games had, I think it was like 5 or 6 different events, and they were really good with their graphics and background, a good way to kind of take you to different places. You know what I mean? The colorful, schemes and horizons and stuff, that's really good and attractive for kids, to show kids like kind of the lighter side of gaming, you know what I mean, without having to get too violent. And it was fun. All the different events, they were there of the different events, there's going to be one that a youngster will like. I know I did. I liked the BMX a lot. The BMX and the footbag, which in retrospect was kind of silly. Man, what a great topic. Think back to when your early video game memories. What would you be ready to pass on to the younger generation? Let's talk about chiptunes for a second, or at least let's talk about the music that's been coming from my website. Green Leo, that's me. I previously released an album called Double Nintendo earlier in the year. Now, I had been working on a new album for a while, but since I got into chiptunes, I just decided to kind of bag the new album project. And I only had a few tracks, so here's what I'm going to do. I had an album that I completed on my own in 2007. And it was something that I printed out some CDRs for. I made a little cover for it. And I handed it out to a few of my friends, and that's pretty much the extent of it. It was an album called The Detective, under the same group name, Green Leo. So I'm going to release The Detective over my website with a few extra tracks. The tracks that I have put together for the new album, which never got a name even, are going to be bonus material on The Detective. So what I'm going to do eventually, when I sit down and take the time to do it, is I'm going to build a new section on the website for music, for my music, and basically start cataloging albums from Green Leo. And if I happen to meet anybody who makes music on their own and doesn't have a website, then maybe I'll host some other stuff. Now, I've been working on this chiptune stuff here lately. But here recently I've come up with Linux Multimedia Studio, which is a freeware sequencer. And one of the synthesized instruments it has that you can work with is a Game Boy, and you can open up the little applet and mess around with the possible Game Boy, sound effects, and you can do the same thing with a synthesized Commodore 64. So that's how I've been making chiptunes, is with that thing. And let me tell you, it's really involved work. It's pretty intense stuff. It's been tough. I've only been able to come up with a few short, little sample tracks, and nothing good either.
So hopefully, like in another year, maybe I'll have a chiptune album out. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll come up with a really short demo of just like a couple of tracks, but I haven't been able to come up with a track yet. I don't have any tracks made. I just have a few like 30-second samples that I've put together. And that's a start, considering that a couple of months ago I didn't know how to deal with chiptunes at all. So I'm moving right along. So that's that. Next up, we have the Zion Story demo. Now, Zion Story is the RPG that I talked about in my tagged video. I thought the demo was a lot further off than it actually is. Basically, what I did was, me and Hemrawc have been working on the game in different areas, and we wanted to chain all the work we had together so that we had a single flowing game to make a demo. And all the stuff that's been worked on so far in these past 3 years was going to be in the demo. The demo was going to be a complete release of all the material we have so far. And since chaining all that stuff together has just been so long, I decided we'll just do it in a modular form. So when you start the game, you go into this little map that says, okay, here are the different sections of the game we've completed, and you can play them one by one. And you kind of get the story that way. Now, in the final release of the game, if that's ever finished, it won't be that way. But this has been a way for me to kind of put the demo together faster, since, let's face it, this is just a little freeware game. This isn't like a major Square Enix type. That's that. Now, actually putting that together, that little interface, took about 3 hours, and it's only about half done, which isn't bad. That's really not that bad. So I think I'm going to finish it up Tuesday. Every Tuesday and Thursday I have an hour and a half on campus between classes. That's usually when I like to work on my games. So I'm going to try and get the demo finished up. After the demo's finished, I send it over to Hemrawc, and he puts his final, any touches he wants to put on it, any comments. He will get to approve the demo at that point. While he's approving the demo, I'll be making the video. Once the video's finished, once I get his seal of approval, he'll send it back to me with his changes. It's going to go on the website, and the video will come out. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I have no idea what I'm going to do with that video, because I have no idea. So that's Zion Story. That's where I'm at right now. Right now, we're focusing on getting the demo done, which is coming along. So what constitutes good internet entertainment? When you guys are watching a show you haven't seen before, what do you look for?
Oh man, that's tough. Like, it depends on what you're looking at. Like, if it's particular to a specific, I'm talking video games. If it's specific to a certain game, or it's specific to a certain sort of, I don't know. I'm totally lost now. It just depends. I guess that's what I'm saying.
I look back at the shows that AVGN put out, like when he first got big. And the thing about those shows was he was talking about games that everybody played. I mean, the thing about like the Ninja Turtles episode when he was talking about how that was like nothing like Ninja Turtles, everybody had that frustration. You know what I mean? And now, as time goes on, he's showing us games that like I've never seen before. So the shift is in the beginning, the game was kind of the star of the show, and now it's like him talking about poop. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you mean. But a lot of people like that, too. They like the humor and the comedy that goes with it, and that makes it a big pull. I think his work is excellent. I've been a big AVGN fan since day one when I first saw his work. I still think he puts a lot of time and effort into his show, and you can tell just by the way he acts, the way he sounds, all the information he brings into it, all the special effects he does, sometimes more for videos, sometimes less for others. But you can tell he really cares about what type of material that he's producing for everybody to watch.
Right, but he's also a role model, which spawns a bunch of people who don't quite get how he does it. You know what I mean? Guys like, I don't want to say the irate gamer, but guys like the irate gamer who try and imitate him, but doesn't really work out too well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
It just seems like there's so many guys who take cameras and point. That's another thing. Big red light. If I'm watching your video and you've got a video camera pointed at your TV, there's something wrong there.
Oh, that's so bad.
You see the glare, maybe like a mirror image in the background. Yeah, that's not good.
those little lines that go down the TV screen that don't
Yes.
ugh.
Yes. I'll tell you the three things I look for if I'm just, say YouTube, for instance, and I'm trying to find something to watch, whether it's a video game review or any type of video in general. I'm looking for quality, entertainment, and information. Sticking with video game reviewing, if the quality of work is great, the video's not too grainy, if it, it doesn't have to be like an HD picture, but something that's not going to hurt my eyeballs and make them explode out of my head. Something that just looks pretty good. The entertainment value, does it have a lot of humor? The people that are talking may know what they're talking about, but if they're boring and dull sounding, it's going to put me to sleep. I'm not going to want to watch it. And the information value. Is the information good that's being presented? Is it quality? Is it up to par? Now, some people make mistakes, and we've made mistakes in our videos. We've just made minor mistakes. We haven't had, we didn't come out and say that, the Atari Jaguar was the greatest video game system of all time. We haven't said anything like that. But we make a little bit of mistakes. But that's the three things I look for, and I'm looking for those type of reviews and those type of work. Quality, entertainment, and the information.
I feel you about the information. Like, every once in a while, you see somebody drop a fact on a show, and it's wrong, and it, totally, sours me to a specific show.
Yep.
I can't remember who it was, but somebody was talking about portable gaming and said that the original Game Boy took 2 batteries.
Took 4.
Now,
I'm right. It took 4, didn't it?
Yes. For those
okay.
of you, for those of you who are listening to this and are under 15 years old, the original Game Boy was the size of a red brick, and it took 4 AA batteries.
Exactly. Yep.
Replacing the batteries in that thing cost like $7 or something.
I actually remember I lost the back casing to my Game Boy, the first couple months I had it, so I always had to tape my batteries in. And the slightest little jolt, if I moved too quickly, the battery could come a little bit out of place, and my game would turn off.
I had the same problem.
Oh, man, I don't even know how I lost the case. I mean, it still blows my mind to this day, but I had to be so careful. Now, if I just got to the point, I just won't take it anywhere. I'll just plug in the AC adapter and just play it that way.
Yeah. What I ended up doing was I took a cardboard box, and I cut a little square out of the cardboard box. Then I took tape, and I taped that onto the Game Boy, so that was my back. And that worked out okay. Except what ended up happening was every time I took the thing off to put new batteries in, it ended up making the back all sticky. So I actually ended up wearing gloves every time I played my Game Boy. But I was
Go out and maybe get another Game Boy from somewhere else when they dropped in price.
Yeah. Oh, God. But I was like, no! Must play Super Mario Land and Tetris.
DuckTales.
I had a Nintendo. The funny thing was, thinking about it now, I played that mostly inside when in my house, when I could have just been playing my regular Nintendo.
We'd have all the colors of a regular Nintendo and the sound of things. You got that, not really a black and white, but it's more like a piss yellowish greenish tint.
It was monochrome. The spinach screen.
Exactly.
I would live in a bad neighborhood. It's I don't want to take my Game Boy out because somebody might steal it. So
you said on our last podcast that we all did together. You talked about how you were, coming home from school one day and someone stole all your Game Boy games from you. Just reached over.
I was sorting through them in my hand. This dude he just reached over and just yanked my whole stack of games that I was sorting. That was it. And he was twice my size. There was nothing I could do about it. And when I went to school, this was on the school bus, so I told, the people who were in charge at school, and they were like, well, we have a policy in place where you're not supposed to bring electronics to school because this is what happens, and I think if you were more responsible with how you manage your property, then this kind of thing wouldn't happen. Yeah, it's, just being a kid and not really having any authority to stick up for you, you know what I mean? You think teachers and stuff are supposed to get your back, in situations like that. It's been a long time since you guys have actually appeared on a moving camera, because your top 10 lists are they're kind of like slideshows, right?
More or less.
You use a lot of images, so it's been a long time since you've actually done any live action video entertainment. What was the last one? Was it the Sunny D thing?
I think so.
I think that was it, actually. Come to think of it. It's been a while.
People don't seem to react as well to the live action stuff as they do the top 10 worst.
It's just because you're in the middle of a series.
Yeah.
And if you do the Sunny D thing was good, but at the same time, if you do a bunch of those, it's like you're dropping the ball in your series. So I think you'll find once you do that number one, and then the reception might change a little bit.
Actually, the last time we were on camera was 4 months ago, and it was the radio promo when we was actually going to start the podcast. That was the last time.
Oh, we got on air for that?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, we didn't hook up our microphones or anything. We just actually talked right into the camera. That's why the audio was so bad.
I kind of remember that.
I mean, it wasn't like terrible, but it didn't sound as normal as what it normally does. But we do actually have planned a critical failure. We will take, if we don't get done with the worst console list by the end of the year, we are going to take a small break and do our second annual video game award show.
I forgot about that. Yeah, you did one of those last year, didn't you?
Yes.
Got a question. Since we're talking about old episodes, do you remember the thing you did about World of Warcraft a long time ago?
Oh, yeah.
I think when I first subscribed to you guys, that was the first new video I think that I ever saw come out on your channel. There was a scene where DB was taking the disc and putting it in different like systems and stuff. He put it in like a CD player and Dreamcast, and it didn't. When you realized that it didn't work, you dropped it on the floor, and it made this loud crash noise.
Yep.
That was an already broken Dreamcast, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, that actually wasn't my Dreamcast, Drake's Dreamcast. That's one of our buddies. And I think that was like his second, or he had 2 or 3 of them laying around. That one did not work. Trust me, I would not drop a perfectly good Dreamcast on the floor.
The reason why I bring it up is because I remember watching that, and I cringed to high heaven when that happened. And I think, I can't remember, but I might have even put it in the comments, but I remember looking at the comments, and like the people above and below me were like, dude, Dreamcast, not cool.
Yeah, I thought someone was going to come hunt me down thinking I really just dropped the Dreamcast on the floor, but it was already busted. I think the CD reader, it had malfunctioned. It wasn't working anymore, so it trust me, I did not drop a perfectly good Dreamcast. I'd say I think probably one of the most hardest games in the Mega Man series was the original.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
that game was just freaking hard.
Which game?
The original that came out in '87, like the original Mega Man.
Oh, yeah. Wow. That game was hard. But you know that game had that secret where you press select. Did you guys use that when you played through it?
I knew about it, but I never actually tried it. I wanted to try to beat the game just as it was made. I knew about the code, though.
I didn't know about it until the very end when you get to that robot, the big face that kind of like disassembles itself and reassembles itself on the other side.
Yeah.
And that was just so impossible. I was like, this is either the end of the game or there's a secret to get past it, but I'm not getting past it. You know what I mean?
You know, Mega Man 9 was challenging, too, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really got to buy that game. Didn't that have like a one power where you could like actually like pick up power-ups from across the room or something, like Hornet Man's power or something like that?
Kind of. He had that little hornet that would fly out and get you some power-ups and stuff.
I think every game, wasn't that the big frustration with some of the Mega Man games, is you'd be like out of power-ups and out of like lives, and then you'd walk past like an extra life that was like way up, and you had to beat some other stage and get some other power to get to it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
just they're like taunting you, teasing you. It's like, yeah, you can't get me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was always like across like a river and a thing of spikes and those little platforms that like are timed. Nothing was ever easy. It wasn't like, I don't know, Dr. Light never made any upgrades to Mega Man. It's like after how many years he wasn't like, okay, now you can not die by spikes. I don't know how this works. Spikes kill you. You're a robot. You're made of metal, but I don't know.
Yeah. Dr. Light was always like, to me, like a worthless character. I remember that in number 2, Dr. Light came up with his 3 like machines, his 3 special number powers, like the platforms and stuff that he would have. Basically, it was the 2 equivalent of Rush. You had Rush and 3.
Mm-hmm.
But when you actually received those powers at the end of beating a stage, the sequence where he showed up on the screen was just like horrendous, and it took forever. The screen would flash, and it would slowly type out, "Get your weapons ready." Oh, God, I want to skip this. Oh, boy. So I guess that about wraps it up for that. Here's a good one. Luigi Bro writes, SNK finally releases another classic arcade collection. So we finally get Akari Warriors. POW better be in there, too. Looks like they're not bothering with the Wii this time. Can't say I blame with them. And he gives a quote here that says, a listing for PS2 and PSP collection called SNK Arcade Classics 0 has recently popped up on ESRB database. That 0 in the title suggests that SNK will be reaching even further back in this one compared to their 90s-centric Volume 1. Another clue is present in the ESRB's description, which mentions that the classic 1989 game SAR, Search and Rescue, is included in the collection. It got mentioned since it seems to be the only reason it got an M rating. Description doesn't mention any of the games, but it does say that there will be 20 games in all over action, fighting, sports, baseball, football, Olympics, shooting, and platforming. Akari Warriors and Psycho Soldier, maybe Athena, are probably in there somewhere. The curious can find a list of SNK's old 80s games here, and it has a really long URL. And that's the end of the letter. Now, I don't know if you guys are Neo Geo fans or not, but I kind of got into some of the stuff they did later. But if you reach way back into the SNK bag of games, they're not that great, are they? I mean, hear me out for a second.
I've never been a super fan of it.
I don't know if you guys ever played Akari Warriors 2 or not. When I was a kid, going through that phase where every video game you play is awesome no matter what it is, and you'd play a terrible game and still have fun because it's a video game.
Right,
I don't know if you remember feeling like that or not. The game that broke me of that was Akari Warriors 2. That was the first time I realized that games could be so bad that they were absolutely not fun at all.
I remember I've actually got Fatal Fury on the Sega Genesis. It was I considered it the poor man's version of Street Fighter. But I mean, it was okay. There wasn't anything special. Then you had the King of Fighters, which was it was okay. But the whole SNK universe, I've never been a big fan of it in general. I've always liked Street Fighter. I really loved the first 2 Mortal Kombat and Midway in that area. But SNK, I never was a super fan of.
I'm kind of with you on that. I've always been a Street Fighter myself, but at least the King of Fighters series was it was a decent series. I mean,
it had a lot of fighters to choose from, and had all sorts of guys from their gaming universe that got brought into it.
Yeah, I think the NES games prior to that era were really bad. The only game I can think of that SNK did for the NES that I liked at all was Guerrilla War.
Yeah, and the funny thing is I've got friends that swear by the SNK series, they loved it more than anything. But maybe if it had gotten a little bit more mainstream, if they'd gotten maybe advertised a little bit more, gotten their name out, because I didn't know anybody that owned a Neo Geo, because they didn't have $20 million to plop down and buy one because they were so expensive to get. But I mean, like I said, I got some friends that swear by it, and I was on the other side of the fence of it. It just wasn't for me, which is perfectly fine. There's some games and there's some companies that a lot of people love and swear by, and there's other ones that people don't want anything to do with. And SNK for me, I never was a fan of them.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the same boat. So the last one, Brain Bomber writes in favorite DOS games. Some of the first games I ever played as a small child were DOS games. And I remember playing Skyroads, Dino Park Tycoon, the original Duke Nukem, the Epitaph game. I don't know if you guys remember that with where he was, the side scroller Duke Nukem. Mm-hmm. Jill of the Jungle, Alien Carnage, Halloween Harry. DOS games, guys. Let's see.
Oh, Star Trek: The Next Generation of Final Unity. Really loved that one. If you were really into the Star Trek genre, especially the Next Generation, that was a fantastic point-and-click game. Had all the voice actors, had all the sound effects. I mean, they must have spent hours upon hours of the voice dialogue that they got from all the characters, all the actors from the Next Generation on that. Great game. Yes, I highly recommend that one if you can find it.
And that was a DOS game?
It was a DOS game, yes.
I remember really getting into I don't know, I'm straying from the topic now, but I have a copy of Deep Space Nine for the Genesis, which is a side scroller, which was kind of like a beat 'em up, but I'm not saying it was a good game, but it was a game that I liked a lot. The difference I don't know if you guys have ever played a game that was bad and you knew it was bad, but you liked it anyway.
There was a Next Generation game that was out for the home consoles. It was actually the same thing as the Genesis Super Nintendo port. Super Nintendo was a little bit better because of the sound quality and the colors were a little bit more brighter. But it was more like a side scrolling, like you said, side scrolling beating up, same type of idea. And it was okay. I mean, it was something fun to mess around with, but it wasn't I'll call an awesome game or anything.
Working on I actually got a hold of a cable so I can turn old cassette tapes into MP3s. So I found a demo tape that I recorded with my guitar when I was crashing at my friend's house for like 2 years. It's like almost a decade old. So I'm putting together a Green Leo, I won't say album as much as a little demo of like some songs that are very, very old. So check out Green Leo Music. Keep an eye open for that. There's a link to that on the main page. Also, I discovered a freeware game called Balloon Tournament 2006. Question for you. Have you ever played... it was 2 games, one for the Game Boy and one for the Nintendo. It was called Balloon Fight, I think. And then the Game Boy version was called Balloon Kid, where you fly around with little balloons.
I've played Balloon Fights, but I haven't played Balloon Kid.
Imagine Balloon Fight mixed with Unreal Tournament.
Oh, that sounds brutal.
Basically, what they did was they took Balloon Fight and they threw in like a ton of options, and so it's like a little freeware game. But lately, when I check out little freeware games, basically what happens is you get like 2 or 3 hours of replay value out of a freeware game tops. This seems to be an exception to the rule. So I definitely want to make a video about this. I have like 3 videos on my plate right now. I'm making a Castlevania video and a couple others.
Yes.
Others. They are coming, and they will kill us all. They are coming, and they won't clean it up. Okay, so let's do some letters. Big PC game are you looking forward to purchasing? Next big PC game I'm looking forward to purchasing. Well, I don't really buy games as they come out, but I have been hankering to pick up some sort of online FPS, like Team Fortress 2 or something like that. Because the number of modern games I have is very slim. What about you, Retro Man? Any titles you're looking forward to picking up?
Duke Nukem Forever.
You know, I still have a
I'll
copy.
just leave it at that.
Yeah. Duke Nukem Never.
Mm.
Didn't they actually finally cancel that project?
Yeah, after what, 10 years?
Oh.
Was it more?
I remember seeing images of that game like that they released way back when I was in high school in like PC Gamer magazine. And at the time they were like, wow. And now, not so much. I'd really like to look them up again. I remember it showed like a close-up of the face of like a guard or something like that. And these days, you know what they can do with 3D modeling and stuff. I guess it makes sense why they would never put it out. Poor Duke Nukem. All right.
Yeah.
So, oh, this is going very well. Critical failure. Gasp. Someone is writing into the show. I hope to have you back on the Retro League one of these days. I do have a question for you. What are your top 5 NES games? Keep rolling retro. Hemrawc. I very much like to do the Retro League again one of these days. You have to give me some information on when you're recording that thing because I never know. As for top 5 NES games, wow. I would probably have to say Wizardry for one, which is another one of those games that only I like and no one else likes at all because it's really not that good of a game. But Wizardry and top 5 games, you really have to go with the basics, like Super Mario Brothers 3, of course, has to be on that list. And then I was always a big fan of the original Mario Brothers, the one that came out before Super Mario Brothers. You know, the one that they used for the battle mode in Super Mario Brothers 3.
Mario, where are you?
So what about you? Favorite top 5 NES games?
Do they have to be in any order? Do they have to be from? Do they have to be in any order, or can I just?
Well, I only gave out 3, so I mean we're just chewing the fat, whatever. No particular.
Okay, let me. Punch Out?
Yes, Punch Out. How could you forget Punch Out?
What else? Actually, you might be surprised about the Japanese version of Super Mario Brothers 2.
That was a tough game. I remember last time I played that I was a kid. And I got in trouble for cursing very loudly in the house.
I bet it on the All-Stars version. I have no idea how I did it.
I watched my older brothers get to the end of the game, and they could never beat the last 2 stages. Just funny.
Bizarre. It gets real bizarre in the end too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does. I mean, that game gets bizarre pretty quickly. But I don't know. It was a good addition to the series. My friend Enji Veratu has a copy of it for the I want to say the disc system, the Famicom disc system.
That's what I've got it on.
Yeah.
I actually own a copy.
Really?
Yeah.
Famicom carts are so much nicer than U.S. carts, aren't they?
Yeah.
Over in Australia, you guys got the gray ones, right? I mean, you guys got your carts when the NES came out in Australia. You guys got the gray ones like we did, didn't you?
Yeah. The big ugly gray ones.
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I like those carts, but I don't know. I would have liked to have seen the different colored carts that they had in Japan. Which is weird that they never did that. Huh?
Kirby's Adventure.
Good game.
Yeah.
My Kirby's Adventure has a hole in it.
Ugh.
Still plays though.
Marble Madness. Absolutely love that game.
Yes. I ended up buying that. I got that for the NES and I got it for the Game Gear. And officially speaking, my Game Gear copy is in the prize bin, so I'll hold some kind of contest and send it out. It cost me all of 51 cents. What else you got?
Donkey Kong.
The original
The
Donkey
original
Kong?
Donkey Kong. Yeah.
That was a good game. I used to have the Donkey Kong Classics, which is the weird thing I noticed about it was that with the Donkey Kong Classics, I only ever ended up playing the original Donkey Kong. What about Star Tropics? You ever get into Star Tropics at all?
It was alright, but the controls were a bit awkward, though.
Yeah, they were. You know, one thing that I always thought about that series was it would have made a great 3D game. Like around the time 64 was putting out 3D versions of all the old 2D games like Castlevania and stuff like that. It would have made a really great 3D game because that was the kind of game that when they, at the time, they were trying to give it like kind of a scary atmosphere. So I imagine it would have ended up playing a lot like that game Medieval for the PS1. Shame they never brought it back. And they never even put him in any like the Smash Brothers games, did they?
Pardon?
You know the Smash Brothers games, how they made reference to all the old NES games like Ice Climbers and stuff like that?
Yeah.
They never said anything about good old Mike, blue shirt Yo-Yo Mike from Star Tropics.
Rest in peace, friend.
Yeah, he sure is dead, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, the first one didn't kill him, the second one I should have.
Yeah. The second one wasn't all that bad. They just didn't make it any better than the first game, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we'll take another break, and I'm going to get some Raisin Bran. Okay, now, we're going to talk a little bit about portable gaming. It's kind of something I've rediscovered with my interest in chiptunes. Now, a friend of mine just gave me my first few DS games. They were Nano Stray, Super Mario Brothers, and The Dark Spire. And he loaned me Scribblenauts. You ever played Scribblenauts?
Yes, I have. It's one of our nominations of Game of the Year in our podcast for DS games. How do you like the game?
You know, it got really mixed reviews because it controls really wonky. And I will say this, it's I guess it's not as like super awesome as I thought it was going to be, but I like it. I mean, people have talked a lot of trash about it, and I really get a kick out of it, honestly.
Seems like mainstream reviewers are trying to be biased just to make sure that their number one video game does not have a higher score. I mean, their number one video game does not have a, lower score than the other, It's like Ocarina of Time has so many flaws, and then there's like another game that has so many flaws.
Can I be honest with you? I've never once played Ocarina of Time. Never.
Wow. You ever played any other Legend of Zelda games?
I was heavy into Legend of Zelda, and then when Ocarina of Time came out, now that was I believe that was like the first 3D Legend of Zelda. That's kind of where I checked out. Just like, and it's not because I stopped liking the series. It was just because, I don't know, I just never got into it after that. I mean,
to be honest with you, I never played Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time when it was released because I was like so busy with the PS1 and all the games. But I never got a chance to get my own copy of Ocarina of Time until say that GameCube remix when it was released.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, wow.
You know, it's on the
Is this
Virtual
a game
Console.
that I missed?
That'd probably be how I end up playing it. It's on the Virtual Console.
You can never be too late on playing those games unless if it's an online game and the servers are out, right?
Right.
Have you ever played any other DS games lately?
Granted, these are the first DS games I've ever had the chance to play. Okay, and I just brought them home last night, so I got to play Scribblenauts and I played New Super Mario Brothers briefly. Now my wife and I have been playing New Super Mario Brothers for the Wii, the one that just came out here recently. We've been playing that hardcore since Christmas, and that's an incredible game. Probably one of the best games I've played in a long time.
Yeah, me and Almulia were playing it with my brother, and man, it's like one heck of a time.
Oh, yeah, the difficulty curve is pretty steep. It gets pretty hard, doesn't it?
Yeah, I always hate it when, there's always like these video game critics who are bashing the game saying that the multiplayer sucked. It does not suck.
It's not that it sucks. It's not that it sucks, and I know exactly what you're talking about. Here's the problem.
Yeah, and also Little Big Planet.
It's local only. People want to see that game played online, and you can't do it.
Yes. Yeah, I understand that. What's also a huge improvement compared to other platform games that has a multiplayer in it. Something like a Little Big Planet, you are not able to carry your opponent, and it gets a pain in the ass just to wait for them to get to one stage to another. In Super Mario Brothers, oh my goodness, I absolutely love carrying characters. I wish that you can carry like 3 characters at the same time.
It's kind of funny. I mean, that can backfire. I was playing it with my buddy yesterday, and we started we were no longer playing cooperatively. You know what I mean? We were just kind of like ribbing each other, and they're like, "Forget it, I'll throw you in a pit."
Oh man, if
you died, you know how you come back in the bubble? We'd come back in the bubble, and then we wouldn't pop each other.
If they actually have online play, I would so play Super Mario Brothers with you, Critical Failure.
Because I think these online games, when you play them these days, and you're always playing them with strangers. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I know. I mean, every time I played something like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, they just jump me into all these people I don't know. And some of them are like campers, some of them are like total experts, and I can't even lay one finger on them. I'm serious.
Yeah, you just get blown away. And that's another thing, is the difficulty curve. I find that a lot with Bomberman on the Wii. I mean, I got really into Bomberman for a while, but you play with the strangers, and you kind of get lumped in with whoever else is playing, and I mean, those dudes just, I don't know if they're cheap.
Like they memorize every maze and every angles of fires and all that stuff, right?
It's like I just ain't got time to learn all that stuff. I'm going to read a few topics from GameFAQs.com, and I'm going to read them as if they were letters written into the show. And Gex up here is going to help me answer a few of these questions. And this might be a good one for you. The Mega Drive is well catered for retro compilations of downloads and such. There's been a ton of stuff for the Master System. Younger gamers aren't really getting to see it at all. The 8-bit Sonic games in particular. The Saturn deserves some attention as well. Even the Sega/Master CD. The 32X, well, you could possibly leave that. But not enough attention is being given to the Master System. Why no love for the Master System? Nobody had a Master System over here. I mean, when I was a kid, I don't remember anybody having one.
Was there a Sonic game in the 8-bit era? No, it was on the 16-bit era.
Yeah, but I believe they remade the Sonic games for the Master System. Like, the Master System underwent this weird era where they remade games for it afterwards. I know they did that with Streets of Rage. The original Streets of Rage came out on the Genesis, but then, like, the year afterward, they put it out on the Master System, 8-bit.
You sure that's not Sega Game Gear?
I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure, but I remember researching that when I did the Streets of Rage remake video, and I remember the numbers didn't really make sense.
Oh yeah, I saw that review. That's actually a pretty good. That's actually a good review. I actually like that one.
That's a really good game. I mean, it's hard to make a bad video, that game.
Yep.
So I don't know. I don't know why the Master System doesn't get enough love. Honestly, the more I read about it, the more it seems like a good system. But a lot of classic systems, I think, their popularity relies on a certain amount of nostalgia. Like, the NES is an awesome system, and everybody loves it. Everybody remembers playing an NES when they were kids,
Yeah, but, in my very first episode of the Boot Chat Radio podcast, when we were doing old games are well remembered to this day of gaming, I realized that there are many gamers who've been playing a lot of games during its time, and they're saying that this game is awesome because they had good memories of it. And then when you go back to the game, to their era, oh my goodness, is that you're asking yourself, did this guy have standards when he first played this game?
Yeah, sometimes there are games you just better leave forgotten. You just keep the memories and don't go back to the game. A good example of that is a game called Stunt Race FX that came out for the Super Nintendo. Do you remember that game?
Stunt Race.
It was the Super FX microchip was just making its big debut, and there was only a few games that were made with it. And of course, the big one being Star Fox. The original Star Fox was made with it.
I think I know that. Didn't they also make 3D Ball Fighter? I forgot.
Maybe. There was a couple that I wasn't familiar with. I found one later called something that started with a V, something I'd never heard of. But I remember Stunt Race FX I remember loving that when I was a kid, and then I played it again later, and the frame rate was incredible, so jerky, and I couldn't even. It's what? So it's weird. You play things when you're a kid, and then you remember them as awesome, and then you play them later, and it's just not the same.
I know, right? I mean, for example, I play I remember I played Bubsy when I was a kid. I used to be so crazy for Bubsy because he was so wild and all that stuff. Not Bubsy 3D, the one from the Super NES game. And then when I realized that there was a Bubsy 3D when I was older and finally got into game trailers and with better research,
right?
I was just shocked of how awful it was. And then when I played Bubsy on the 2D game, I was saying to myself, "Oh my goodness, I can't enjoy this game because I experienced something that was just horrible about the series."
Well, that's the classic pitfall of classic gaming. You know what I mean? That's something that we all deal with at one point or another. Now
there's always something that will ruin a moment.
That's it, and then you just can't.
Okay, so I've been wanting to talk about Mega Man 10 for a while now. Of course, if you don't already know, Mega Man 10 is going to be the retro-style follow-up to Mega Man 9, another game done with the 8-bit, the 8-bit formula, the 8-bit style graphics. Everybody's excited about this game. It's supposed to have an easy mode if you couldn't quite handle the difficulty curve of Mega Man 9, which was a common complaint. And now the Robot Masters, which are going to be in the game, have been revealed. Now you got to keep in mind that these games, 9 and 10, are both a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Okay, this is very plain to see when you look at the cover art. It's supposed to be almost a parody of the way things were back in the early 8-bit days when the first Mega Man came out. So here they are. First on the list is Sheep Man. Then we have Commando Man, a Minesweeper robot. Then we have Strike Man. Then we have Blade Man, which seems weird that there wouldn't be a Blade Man until Mega Man 10. Then we have Nitro Man, and Pump Man, and Solar Man, and finally Chill Man. Yes, that's it. That is the Robot Master lineup for Mega Man 10. Also, Proto Man is supposed to be playable along with a third character, which they are keeping secret, or at least I haven't heard about yet. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for the fail bag.
It's time for the fail bag.
Alright, if you don't know how this works, basically what I do is I go to GameFAQs.com, look around on the boards, I pull topics and read them as if they are letters written into the show. These are not actual letters written into the show, but I'm going to read them as if they are, just for laughs. Eternal Flames writes in, I had an SNES as a kid and my little brother had a Genesis. I was a hardcore gamer, pretty much from the moment Atari joystick hit my hands, whereas my little brother hardly cared about games. As a result, I think we had 3 or 4 Genesis games versus the dozens of SNES games I got for birthday/Christmas. I've tried a number of times to get into the Genesis as an adult and play its best games, but most of the time I end up playing a few Sonics, a few random games, and beyond Oasis or Shining Force, and then just go back to retro tripping on the SNES, which I always enjoy more. I want to try a retro trip back to the Genesis again, but I want to know what games you recommend. I played a number of the big titles, so like above, I mentioned an Alex Kidd / Vector Man. But there's got to be some gems on the system, like the SNES's Lufia 2 or UN Squad. It just really got overlooked. Well, Eternal Flame, my answer to that is you don't necessarily have to go for games that are overlooked, just games you haven't played yet. Like say Jungle Strike or Urban Strike, or maybe this might seem like a cliche answer since you listed Shining Force, but what about Shining Force 2? That was a great game. I played Shining Force 2 long before I ever played Shining Force 1. Also, you got to keep in mind that the nostalgic goggles that you wear whenever you play a Super Nintendo will always affect your interest in retro games. You'll never have that, no matter how hard you try, for the Genesis, just because you never played it so much when you were a kid. Okay, so let's go on to the next one here. Gamer of NS writes in, the second most wanted SNES game on Virtual Console, because most people would say Earthbound or Final Fantasy, quote-unquote, 3. What's the other game that you want that isn't consistently mentioned on these boards? Me, recently, I really want to see Star Fox 2 made available, though it's unlikely it'll ever appear for whatever reason. It would still be pretty freaking sweet if it did. Okay, so you want to hear a game that we want to see on Virtual Console that isn't mentioned all the time. I wouldn't mind seeing Stunt Race FX appear on the Virtual Console. Maybe they could... Virtual Console games never get changed. They try not to change those games, but it would be nice to see that game running on hardware a little smoother. You know, maybe they could clean it up and release it on WiiWare or something like that. That was a good SNES title I wouldn't mind seeing again. So I guess that's going to wrap it up for the Fail Bag. And for episode 19 of Tiger Claw Radio. Sorry to keep this one short, but I got a number of things that I have to take care of today, and I'm running into hardware troubles, or software troubles, so this episode is becoming increasingly difficult to try and record. So let's talk about arcade games. Now, this is quite a leap from our previous topic. I was talking to my wife recently. We're talking about getting a new house. And I mentioned this, I don't know if I mentioned this in a previous podcast, but I know I've talked about it on the Retro League forums. And I've always wanted to own an arcade cabinet. So, an arcade cabinet. But you can only have one arcade cabinet. That's what she says. So, one arcade cabinet for the rest of your life. I talked about this, and if you could only have one arcade cabinet in your house, just one, forever, what would you have? Now, up until this point, my answer to that question has been the Mario Brothers machine. It's a good choice. It's got 2 joysticks, a good 2-player game. It has high replay value, and it's a game I play over and over again through the years, at least through my NES cart. Every time I go down to Walt Disney World, I play that machine. I've heard a few other good picks, though. One popular pick is a Neo Geo MVS machine, which absolutely counts. People say I've heard people say that's cheating to this question, but through the parameters I've been set for my wife, that's a perfectly good choice because it's a space issue. It's not a money issue. An MVS machine, is costly, and you can swap out the carts, which are super expensive, but that's not the point. You can buy one and get one cart put in and just stick it in your spot, and then get a few more as time goes on. That's a perfectly good choice. But to get this would be my chance to get a coin-operated arcade machine. To me, that is the holy grail of retro arcade game collecting, and that's why I think I can talk about this in more than one podcast. So an MVS machine was a good choice. Another one I heard from more than one person was a PlayChoice 10, which seems kind of silly to me because I have. I'm not going to say an extensive NES collection, but I have a pretty decent one. So a PlayChoice 10 to me seems like kind of a waste. Another really good one I heard is a flat top Pac-Man machine. Now, Miss Pac-Man's a great choice. Honestly, I think it would be awesome to have anything flat topped. like back in the old days at the pizza parlors. I think if you've ever seen the movie The Wizard, they played on, I don't know what game it was, but they used one of those in the movie The Wizard. Those are great, especially since I can't find them anywhere. I mean, every once in a while, once in a blue moon, you'll still see a coin-op arcade machine scattered about, but those tabletop machines, as far as I know, they're gone. I saw one at the Pop Century Resort in Florida, Walt Disney World. I saw one there a couple years ago. It was like a relic. I took a bunch of pictures of it. I know it was only there because they wanted to date the place and make it look like it was from the 80s. But there was one there. It wasn't working, but it was there. So that was the last one that I've seen. Okay, so that's going to be the topic for this podcast, or the question for this podcast. I want you to answer me on the forums. Write into ajc1490@gmail.com. Now, this is a call to all of you who listen. I know there's a few of you out there. What is your all-time favorite arcade machine? If you don't think you can answer what's the one machine you'd have for the rest of your life, I want to hear those classic arcade mushy stories that you have, because everybody has one. You know, I've heard stories, people getting taken to arcades as kids, and that's how they got hooked on video games. Me personally, I had stories very similar to that. I used to go on drives with my old man for a couple hours. We would drive like 2 hours out of town and go to this little Jive Mall, just because it had a theater and an arcade. Not for the arcade and the theater, but it was a drive in the country, which was ideally what we were after. And, of course, for me and my brothers, we could give a crap about the drive in the country. We just wanted to play the games. Played some good games in that arcade, too. Spent a lot of money. Yeah, so arcade stories, just like that. Anything you remember fondly about the arcade? Anything that bothered you about the arcades? As a matter of fact, I remember I remember one time Angie and I were really young, and we were on our way to the arcade, which is about a 20-minute walk or so, and Angie on a bike actually got hit by a car, I think, when we were only 1 block down the road. So we definitely didn't make it to the arcade that day. Yeah, so arcade memories, if you have them, I want to hear them. ajc1490@gmail.com, or go to the forums. Now that aside, let's talk about what I've been playing recently, because let's face it, I am really important. No, seriously though, I have recently spent a little bit of time playing, I actually dusted off Bubble Bobble for the Wii. That was, I gotta say, that's a really good buy. If you haven't picked up Bubble Bobble from WiiWare, that's, people complain about the remixed music in the arranged mode. It comes with an arranged mode and the original mode. And the arranged mode has 4-player simultaneous play. Excuse me. Which is quite a draw, except that you need 4 Wii remotes, which is no inexpensive task. Honestly, and maybe it's because I didn't start playing Bubble Bobble until a couple years ago, so I'm not quite as nostalgic as most people. I don't really think the music is that bad. The game is really good, but don't get suckered into buying the add-on content, because there's no point. I've been playing the Darkspire, which is another game I talk about. I talked a little bit about last time, and I put out a video for it recently. It's my first ever DS review was for the Darkspire. Now, something that occurred to me recently. Now, Darkspire is nostalgic of old first-person RPGs, like, let's say, Phantasy Star, or Wizardry is the one that I've been beating to death. I loved those games as a kid, and then it struck me, those games are so simple that there should be a freeware representation of something like that. I mean, there should be a freeware game out there that plays kind of like that. So I went searching. I haven't found anything yet. I did find that there was one that was being made that actually had an editor in it. It wasn't just a game. They were actually building it to be an engine, which you could, essentially build your own Wizardry-esque type game. I mean, those games are meant to kind of be like D&D, so it seems only fitting to have Dungeon Master tools. And that was awesome. It was a website. I can't remember the name of the project, but then I was looking at the updates, and it was last updated in 2004 or something. That just broke my heart. That was really disheartening. So I'm still on the lookout to find a first-person RPG freeware game. If you know of one, go ahead and write it in. I would love to hear about it and give it a try. So what else have I been doing? I played a little Mega Man 3 recently. Now, I was hardcore into Mega Man 3 about 2 months ago or 3 months ago, and I had never really played that game a whole lot before. I beat one by one. I beat all the Robot Masters, and I beat all the Dark Men but one. I had one Dark Men stage left, which was the Shock Man. I believe it's Shock Man stage revisited. And the revisited bosses you have to fight are Metal Man and something else. Well, I beat that stage, and then I beat Break Man, which is the Proto Man battle at the end. Then I got to Wily's Castle, and at Wily's Castle, of course, you are given a password, which is the final password for the game. From there on, you can't continue. Then I gave up. I was like, okay, I've had this game for a while. So Angie comes over to my house, okay? Now, Angie has never beaten the Darkman stages. He's always been a better Mega Man player than me. He can beat the actual standard Robot Master stages up and down and run circles around me as a Mega Man player. But he never beat the Darkman stages. Well, he picked up the controller from my save game and just knocked out the rest of the game in like 15 minutes. Ugh. But I did get to see the ending. That was kind of cool. Apart from that, I've been still playing through New Super Mario Bros. Wii with my wife. We're on the 7th world, I believe. We just beat the Midway Fortress on the 7th world. We had a final push to see if we could finish the game before I went back to school, but I'm going back tomorrow. So honestly, I don't see that happening. Unless we beat the last world tonight, which I don't think will happen. Because we're pretty slow going with that game. I registered an account at archive.org. I've got most of the archive of old episodes from episode 1 all the way up to this one. I think I'm missing one episode, but I was going to put every one of those on archive.org so you could go check out the early episodes if you, wanted to for some reason. But I'm having some trouble getting them uploaded. But that will happen. If you want to go back and hear the old episodes, that will happen. Not right now. It hasn't happened yet, but I'll let you know. Okay, also, I did that album, Casual Gamer, I don't know, a month ago now? 3 weeks ago? And that did, okay. I guess, the album was downloaded 20 times, which is, honestly, when I think about it, a really good number, when I listen to the album. And I've already started working on a follow-up, which is, I don't take these things really seriously. But essentially, I have 6 tracks done in FamiTracker, and they're way better than all the stuff on Casual Gamer. I've uploaded one of those tracks, called Twinkle Heart Bubble, on the 8-Bit Collective, www.8bc.org. And of course, then under the name Green Leo. You can hear that track over the internet, and it would be great support if you would go check it out. I'm really proud of that one, and it's not doing very well, to be honest. It's not getting shunned, which is a good thing, but it's kind of just I don't want to say overlooked, because I don't want to make it sound like it's some sort of musical frickin' masterpiece, but it's definitely not drawing any attention, which is fine. Not everything is going to be awesome. Do you know what I mean? That's just kind of a silly thing that I'm working on, and I kind of get a kick out of it. Now, the major thing that I'm working on is, of course, the Colteca demo, RPG Maker, an original RPG. It was adapted from a story written by NG from previous games he made. It's going to have a downloadable game with it that you can play. You can actually play this thing when it comes out. The script is done. The audio has been recorded for the script, the voiceover. I've taken a bunch of footage from the game to use that just remains for me to edit the video and put it together. Also, I need to... the game itself, the gameplay is 100% completed. You can play it, the demo, all the way until it ends, which is about an hour of gameplay. A little less, maybe. Depends on how much you like to explore or whether you just want to, plow through it. I think you can really plow through it in like 35 minutes if you really... don't read anything and just keep on rolling. All that's left to do on that is to put in the end events. The boss is there. You can beat the boss. I just need to put in the ending event. So that's going to be like maybe an hour of work, but I keep putting it off. I don't know why. when I go back to school, the amount of videos that I put out is going to slow down. It hasn't been as much as it used to be already, but it's definitely going to slow up. Now, Kolteca is a priority. Kolteca will come out. Even if I'm back in school, it will come out. But after Kolteca, there might be a slowdown. So what you'll probably see is an increased activity here in the podcast and less YouTube activity for a while. I'm Critical Failure. Thank you for listening to Tiger Claw Radio. I'm Critical Failure once again, signing off.